What's going on, everybody? Thanks for joining. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Get some sort of thumbs up or something in chat. Make sure you guys can hear me. I didn't do any testing before jumping in here, so hopefully everything is correct. Hello, hello. Can you guys hear me? There is about a 5-second latency, a little bit of a lag in there, but oh no. Let me turn on my game sounds. I'm not getting anything in chat. Let me turn on. All right, I could hear me in the video in the live stream. So cool. All right, hopefully everything's going good with you guys today. So for anybody now and in the future, what we're doing in this live stream is I've had some people ask me about using my inventory system as an equipment system. So I'm just going to kind of do a down and dirty overview of how to do this. I'm just going to come in here and just kind of do it and give you guys a general idea. I'm not going to build a full system in this. I'm just going to show you relatively how easy it is. It's really not going to be too difficult. Obviously, you're going to have to make some adaptations, but anybody who's talked to me about this recently has heard me say that an inventory is an inventory is an inventory. Well, what that means is what I mean by that is the fact that what is an inventory? It doesn't matter how you build it, how you design it. An inventory is a container that holds other objects, whether that's an inventory system you create in Unreal or in life. It's a container that holds other objects. So what we built was an inventory system. It doesn't care what objects go into it, right? We built it to design to hold other type of items, it generally, stuff you're going to pick up in the world, things like that, because this is a survival based style that I'm going for in my series. But what is an equipment system? Well, it's an inventory system that holds specific items, right? We don't want to let in the food. We only want to let specific items in there, but it's still an inventory system. We've already built the crux of the inventory system. So there's no sense in reinventing the wheel. We just have to adapt what we have. So it's not going to be too hard. It'll take us a little bit of time to do it. And like I said, for those of you who like to critique me on my on the way I write my code and stuff, this is down and dirty because I don't plan on, at least not right now, I don't plan on doing an equipment system for my game. We'll see how it goes in the future. If I end up, and that's why I'm doing this as a live stream instead of videos, if I do end up doing an equipment system, it'll probably go along the same line, but it'll be much more refined, much more user friendly. Hey Aaron, good, thanks. And good to see you. And so hopefully you're not too lagged, Aaron. Let me know. It should only be about a 5-second delay from what I say to the video, but for you to say you can hear me now, it makes me think you might be behind in the video further than 5 seconds. So it would be a good test to see where you're at in that. So just that way I know your questions, how far behind you're looking when you're asking me questions. So yeah, so if I end up doing videos on this, hey Bishop, yep, you're here. We're just getting started. I'm just talking about what we're doing. So yep, you made it. Okay, Yeah, crystal clear. Cool. Yeah, just a matter of lag, Aaron. I'm not quite sure. I think you might be a little bit further behind in the video. Yeah, Bishop, you seem to be caught up a little bit, so a little bit more current. Aaron, you seem to be a little bit behind in the VOD, in the playback. We haven't done anything yet, so if you want to get, speed up, Aaron, then try to get up if you can. But then again, it could just be your internet service putting you a little bit behind. But anyways, yeah. So if I do some videos on this, then they'll be a little bit more refined. I want to do this just to kind of just show easy way to do it. I don't have any intention of designing a UI system right now. I know that's a big part of inventory system. I'm going to adapt what I have, for your equipment, you're probably going to want a little bit something different. Let's just get the core of the work in on this, just to kind of switch it over to using equipment, and then we'll see what time we have left, and we will jump into maybe doing a little bit of UI work. But for the UI, I'm just going to use what we've been using. If we come over here to the primary HUD, we've just been using the one inventory window for two different. This one's labeled primary inventory window, second inventory window. I think I'm just going to do the same thing. Is I'm just going to add a third one here just for equipment. So that way we just have something to put the item slots into. And so let's just go ahead and do that now. Let's go user created. And where are we? Inventory window. I'm just going to drop it. Where do we have it here? On the canvas. Yep, there we go. And again, for those of you that are following in my series, this is just a copy, because I don't plan on doing this because it's going to be down and dirty. This is exactly where we left it in my last YouTube video. This is the version that I use. I just cloned it, so I'm just running a clone of what you guys see in my videos. So I have done absolutely nothing with this. It is everything up to my last YouTube video. So if you're following along, you should be able to just jump right in if you're at the same place that we are in the video. All right. Let's just go equipment window and size. We're just going to move it just somewhere around here. It doesn't really matter. And make sure it is variable. So just so you guys know, I'm going to be paying attention to the chat. If you guys got questions, just ask me your questions. There's a little bit of latency in there, 5+ seconds in there, depending on your internet. But for mine, there's about a 5-second latency from what I'm seeing versus what I'm doing. But it's on a different screen, so I'll keep turning my head over to look, see if there's new questions, but I'll answer them. So if you got them, throw them in there. Not a big deal. We will get to it. So again, how do we use the current system to do this, right? We got the inventory component. That's where we built all our core features for the drag and drop and for handling all our items and all that good stuff. And that resides on, well, it could reside on your storage containers, things like that, right? That's how we built it. You can just drag it and drop it on something. You give it some value, some default values here, like capacity, is it a hotbar, things of that nature. And that's it. But you can have multiple of these components on the same actor. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add another one. And let's go AC. Where is it? AC inventory component. We got it right there. And I'm going to call this one equipment inventory. Okay. So now we have two separate inventories on our person. One is our primary inventory that we're going to use for all our storage items, for our main items, and then our equipment inventory. So what is equipment? Generally speaking, you're going to have a weapon, you're going to have a helmet, chest plate, leg plate, and maybe some booties, right? Some boots or something of that nature. So that gives me 5 different items that you can have on your person in your inventory, right? So your equipment might be different. I'm just going to go with 5. Weapon, or something you can hold in your hand, whether it's a weapon or a tool, helmet, chest plate, leggings, and booty. So there's 5 inventory items right there. So with inventory, the equipment inventory component selected, let's just change the capacity to 5. Okay. And again, this isn't going to really do anything at this point, right? We got to be able to distinguish the difference between the equipment inventory and the regular inventory. So, and sorry if you guys can hear that in the background. My plants are watering at this point. It'll only take a second if you hear the water leaking in the background. I swear I am not in the restroom, but I don't know if you guys can hear that with the noise suppression I have on here or not. So we open up the inventory component, and you can see here we already have is hotbar on here. It's a value in here that okay, Aaron, looks like you're caught up if you heard that, laughing at that. So we have is hotbar here. So another thing we could do here just to distinguish it, right? Because we did this is hotbar. This is primarily just so we can notice the difference in here when we are doing our, let's go in here. I think it's in the primary HUD. When we, nope, it's not the primary HUD. Where's the inventory window maybe? Sorry, guys, I got to come in here and look. Where are we? Update. Actually, I think it is in the inventory window. No, primary HUD. Update inventory. In the update inventory, we have is hotbar right here. We're checking is it hotbar. And the primary reason we're doing this is so now we can come in here and we can grab the inventory that the inventory window where we want to put all the slots, right? So that's primarily what we're doing right here. So let's go ahead and we're going to do the same thing on the AC component. We're just going to add another variable here, and we're going to call this B is equipment, right? We'll just go B is equipment. You can name it whatever you want. I'd probably name it differently if this was production, but B is equipment, good enough for this video. Let's go ahead and compile it. So now we have that default value is false because we don't want it to be. We're going to also end up creating, I just know we're going to end up needing this. So I'm going to go Control W, and I'm going to create a new folder in here. And I'm just going to call this enums. We're going to need new enum. So let's right click and blueprint enumeration. And we're just going to call this equipment type. E underscore equipment type. Open this up. Now it's important here, and let me drag this over off my other screen. It's important here that as we do this, your first one needs to be none, because we're going to give this enumeration to all the to all of our items, right? So we need to distinguish that they're none, right? Everything's going to be defaulted to that. Only on our new equipment will we do that. So this actually needs to be 6 deep. So 3, 4, 5, 6. This first one, you can have it whatever you want. I'm just going to call this hand, right? Because it could be a weapon, could be tool. So if I name that weapon, it might be misleading, but this is what can go in your hand. Head. Why didn't it select there? Head. Torso, legs, and feet. All right, so we got this enumeration now. So now if we come back into our items, okay, we go into inventory, items. Now we got the BP base. Remember, this is the base of every single item that we have in the world. This is the BP base is going to be the master of all of those. Okay. So we need every item because we need to distinguish when we're passing items into an inventory, we need to distinguish whether it is equipment or not. Okay. And if it is equipment, what type of equipment? So we could just pass a Boolean like we did is equipment and then do something there, but then we still need to decide on what type of equipment it is. So instead of having that extra step, we're just going to have the enumeration in there. We're just going to check on that. So in the variables of BP base item, let's go equipment type. Okay. And we're going to make it of E underscore equipment type, the enum we just created. All right, let's go ahead and compile it. So now every single item that derives from this child of base item has this value right here, and it's going to default to none, which is perfect because the majority of items in the world will never be that. Okay, so now we have that. we can go ahead and close this enumeration, I think. And then we can come in here now and let's go. I'm just going to get rid of is hotbar right now because we're not doing anything with that. You know, we can, what we would do in here is it hotbar or equipment? And then we can run another check up here with, well, which one is it? Is it hotbar? No, then it must be equipment. So you could do that as well. But for now, I'm just going to get rid of is hotbar because I'm not utilizing it. But if you're going to utilize a hotbar and the equipment, again, you'll want to run a check against both of those. But we're going to go is equipment. Get that. We're going to plug that in here into the branch. So if it's not equipment, then it's going to go through and it's going to continue doing what it normally does. But if it is equipment, now we want to handle that up here. And by handle that, what are we doing right here? Well, what we're doing right here is we're just taking the slots and we're going to be able to utilize the same slots because all a slot is it holds information of the item. Okay. And then it gives you a graphical picture to put onto the user widget. Right, so that's all we're doing here. So we're going to do some work in here. Let's do a little bit more, though, before we worry about the UI. Okay, so just make sure that we compile it and save it. All right, and where are we here? Any questions so far? You guys okay? Nothing too complicated at this point. Where was I going to go? We need to go. Let's go back out to here, right? So now what we did, remember in my series, we've got BP base item. This is the parent. And then we've got the food items. And so we've got bread. Remember, this is a child of the BP food is a child of BP item. And then the bread and red berries are children of the food, right? So we need to follow the same kind of logical parent-child hierarchy here. So let's go ahead and create a new folder. Let's call this equipment. And then, so from here, let's create a child blueprint and we'll call this BP underscore equipment. So now this is the base, just like this is BP food over here in food. This is the parent of all equipment. So it's still a child of BP base, but now we can add variables to here that all equipment will end up needing. But the base parent and all these food and everything else, they won't know anything about it because parents don't know anything about their children. Children only know about their parents. So we got that. So I'm going to take that and drag that into the equipment. We're going to move it there. All right, come in here. And I'm just going to right click. And I like to do this frequently when I'm moving files around, fix up redirectors. Just keeps things from getting too messy as far as the redirectors go. So BP equipment in here. And so now, again, we need to create the 5 types. So let's right click and go. And really, we could probably do 6 in here. Let's just start with this one. We'll discuss the other one in a second. Create child. All right. And this is going to be BP underscore head. Or you can name it helm for helmet or something. I'm just going to do head because that's what I named the enumeration. All right, and then now I'm just gonna let's see, what do we need to do? Let's just go copy, duplicate. There it is, Control D. BP underscore torso. BP underscore leggings. And then BP underscore feet. Hey, noob or nubifier. How's it going, buddy? Haven't seen you in a little bit. Good to see you. Hey, Ben. All right. So now with this here, we've got the 4 primaries, right? So, yeah, that's all I did with these ones. Once you have the child of the equipment, now they're all going to be child of the equipment. So that's all I did. I created one child of BP equipment, which was the head was the first one I made. And then since that's already a child, so if we open this up real quick, put it over here, you're going to see the parent is BP equipment. So that's all I did with that. You don't have to do that. It just, it's a little bit easier to hit Control D than always having to right click, create child. So that's all that was. I just copied those. Okay. So now there's a 4, but we still have the hand, right? So what you may want to do for your game, I'm not going to tell you how to do your game, but what you would want to probably do at this point is come in here and you can copy one of these again if you want to. which I will control D because this is a child of that. I'm going to go BP underscore tool, right? Because we did the item type hand. Yeah, there should be, hopefully it's going to automatically upload as soon as we're done. You're going to have the VOD and you can go back through. That's why I kind of did it this way. I had a few of you guys asking me about how to turn this into an equipment system. So that's just kind of what this is. If you missed it at the beginning, we're not going to do a full system. We're going to try to get it operational. I'm just trying to show you guys how to adapt it. This is what I call just kind of down and dirty. The code's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be pristine. I'm just going to give you guys a rough rundown of how to do it. And then you can adapt it to your own systems or to your own game using my system. It's not going to be that hard to convert what we need to do here, but we obviously need to create some things in advance. So because I'm not right at this point, I'm not putting equipment into my game or my project, so that's why I'm not doing regular videos on it. But I just wanted to kind of address this with you guys as we go through and just try to give you guys a little bit of help and show you how flexible the system I built is. Okay, so now with that, we got BP tool. So now again, control D, and we'll do BP underscore weapon. Okay, so these are technically both hand, right? Because we did the type hand. So you just have to keep that in mind. But chances are likely when it comes to all these different items that you have here, a tool is going to act different than a weapon, right? So you want to have the parent. So in here, you might have for your weapon, you're going to have damage, right? Things like that, or maybe even a magical effect, you know, whatever type of game you're building. Your weapon is going to be different, whereas in a tool's not going to, it may end up having some sort of damage on there, you know, or a durability, things like that. The type of damage it inflicts when you're, you know, chopping down a tree, for instance, things like that. But you're still going to have different variables in here. That's why we do the parent-child hierarchy, is because with the parent, you can create some variables there that others don't have. So equipment, what is, for an example here, hopefully you guys already have a grasp of all this because we talked about it with our BP base item in the other videos. But right here, if you come up here and you hit the little red icon, you go show inherited variables. We come down here now. If we drop down variables, everything that it inherits, this is the BP equipment from the BP base item. See, if I switch back and forth between here, you can see all these variables are over here for our use, right? So the only reason why it looks a little bit different is because its functions going like that. But see, so we just drop it over here. It's got all the same things, right? So that's the point of that. It's got all those. You could just take them. If you don't have them shown, you still have access. You don't have to have them shown to know it's there. So for example, we've got thumbnail. So if I want to access thumbnail, I don't see it here, but I just right click and go get thumbnail, and you've got access to the variables here. I could just drag it out and use that variable here. Okay. So just because you don't see it doesn't mean you don't have it. It just keeps it clean. But if you need to see it, need a reminder, that's how you do it from that right there. Okay. So just as a quick example here, we got BP equipment. So what is all of your equipment types going to have? It's going to have, let's say, durability, because eventually, you know, unless you want equipment that's going to last you forever, you're going to want durability. So we just go like this. This is probably going to be a float type. Again, I'm not going to design your game for you. I don't necessarily need this. I'm just doing a quick rundown for you. Okay, so now we have that durability, and then you're just going to do that. So then if we come back out here to any of these, let's pick tool, you're going to come in here and you're going to see it's got the default variable durability, and we can set this individually independent of every other thing we have, right? But again, this is the parent, so you're probably going to want to come in here and only set default variables in here for every tool item you have. And then you're going to want to come in here and then right click on this and then create a child of this. And we would call this BP underscore axe. And then come in here to the weapon and go create child BP underscore sword, right? So now this BP child is a child of the weapon. So, and you can create separate folders in here too. I probably would, again, if I was doing this, I'd have a separate folder for all my head, all my legs, you know, so this would be all categorized. You want to try to keep yourself organized as possible. So then all this, I'm just going to do this because we're going to probably end up using this weapon as we move forward. So I'm just going to create a new one here, weapons. Then I'm going to take my parent weapon and the sword that we just created and move them into there. So there we go. So here's our weapons. Just keep yourself organized as you go through. I'm not going tell you guys how to keep your own projects organized. Let's see, where are we at here? Everybody doing all right so far? Again, still nothing too complicated. Take a drink. Yeah, sorry if I'm moving too fast here. I just want to try to get through this. There is a little bit we have to get through. I'd like to get through before we end today, and I don't want to be here for 5 hours. So I might be moving a little bit too fast. Again, I'm looking over best I can, looking up for your comments. All right. So there we go. So now we've got items in here, and those are the type of items we're going to do. So while we can check every item in here, where are we? Primary HUD, right? So we can come in here and we can check item type as we're going into, where are we? So we'll just use this as an example. You could check item type. Remember, is wait. Let me break this real quick. Okay, so we got the item here, and if we went equals, or actually, I think we could probably just go is class child of. So is this class a child of BP base item, right? So you can check, is this item a child of the BP base item? So essentially everything we have, every item in the world, regardless of what it is, should be a BP base item. We have a check of this where we do just the equals. We don't check is child of. We don't check this. We just do equal. But this is just as relevant, and probably when you're starting to have multiple systems like we're doing now, where we have just this long list of parent-child hierarchy. And I suggest if you're going to have this massive hierarchy of parent-child, keep it, do a spreadsheet or something on your computer, just so you can keep mental track and you just can look at it for reference to see what files or what blueprints you have under which category. It's just going to help you stay organized. But you can also come in here and go, is it what's its parent? So BP underscore equipment. So is it a child of equipment? Okay, well, now only those that we made children of equipment will test positive for this, right? So the berries and the bread and everything else that we create based off of the food item or anything that's not this BP equipment is going to test false and run down this way. So keep that in mind. We're going to utilize that in just a little bit, but that's kind of how you do that. That's how you can distinguish one of the benefits of using the parent-child hierarchy system is that. What is that again? What is what again, Aaron? All right, thanks, Bishop. Yeah, I'll see you when you get your kids to bed. I understand that. Aaron, what are you talking about, child? Okay, so I'll look out for your question there, Aaron. I don't want to leave you behind. I know there's a little bit of latency in there, so I'll pay attention, but just go ahead and ask your question. Try to be a little bit more, remember, there is a latency, so I'm ahead of you a little bit. So when you ask your questions, just try to give some context to it so I know exactly what part of the conversation you're talking about. Okay, so, where are we here? Oh, break struct. Yeah, you can just, when you break it, right? Because we're just passing in the item here. I don't want to confuse you with that. I'm just showing you when you're testing the item of within the struct, instead of just doing equal, right? It's probably better now that we have multiple things to do is child of. Is child of. I probably spelled that wrong. I did. Is child of. So it's probably better to do that. So I'm just pulling it off of the struct right here. I probably shouldn't did that. I wasn't trying to confuse you guys here. I'm just using the item struct there. Okay, so now let me think of where we're at. So now we have the item in the world. I'm just gonna I don't have another icon. I was kind of looking for one before I started. Let me see real quick if you guys got any extra questions you want to ask. Sword while I try to find some sort of like sword icon or something that I can use in here. Just kind of down and dirty. Let's see. I think this one will probably be fine. Well, you know, this isn't so much, Aaron. You know, I know we did the one-on-one, but remember, it's not really so much word for word, right? That's why I'm saying that. What is this? This is open image, a new tab. This is just more or less about showing you how to adapt it, right? You want to take the bits and pieces because it's not that it's really not going to be that complicated once you kind of get through it and you see it. And you know, I know we had the one-on-one, Aaron, you know, so it might take you an extra time watching this, whatever it's going to take, but once it clicks, you're going to realize that it really is just simple, you know. But I don't want to get, like I said, I don't want to get too far into this because I'm not going to do an equipment system, and that's going to be the weapons, the equipment system. That's going to really be game dependent. I mean, it's going to be different for every type of game that you create. So you do one-on-ones, might have to contact you about that thing just going in. Yeah, I don't always do one-on-ones, but I can if I've got some time. Aaron's been trying to get me to do one-on-one, but since another one to go over this with them, but I figured it'd probably be just easier because there's a few of you that were interested in the equipment system. But yeah, you don't hang on word. Sorry, I'm trying to do a couple things at once here. Save image. Let's just go copy image. Sorry guys, I'm trying to get a sword icon. I probably don't really need it for this, but you know what? I'm not going to worry about it. It's just about the fundamentals of doing it, right? So there's someone who recently joined the channel. I can't really think of how to pronounce his name off the top of my head. If he's watching this, he'll know he's talking about. Recently joined and started talking to me about, you know, different ways of doing some of the code I did. And I always try to say in almost all my videos, there is 100 different ways to accomplish the same task. It's up to you, right? So you gotta cater it to your game, because most of you guys that are following along with this series are adapting it to an existing game you're already doing. Some of you are most likely further advanced in your game than I am in my project for YouTube, right? Because there's a lot I've got to do in order to produce a video. So with that, you just have to you're still going to have to be adapting. So just take the core principles. Don't hang on every word that I say. Things go in when starting. Not really. When it comes to things like this, Ben, I'm pretty, as far as just you're talking about, I'm guessing you're talking about learning how to code and all that in general. And if that's the case, then no, not really. I mean, you're always going to have to, I was constantly watching videos like you guys and going to the forums and asking questions in the forums and things of that nature. So, you know, and I still do, right? I mean, because I've never claimed to be an expert in this. I think, well rehearsed in this, but there's still a lot I don't know. And as I learn things, if you go back and you watch one of my first videos in my RTS series, I talk about this. I'm learning this as I'm going along with you guys. So I build the system before your videos. I have 3 of the same project that I work in when I'm building these. And so I'll build something kind of like this, down and dirty, do it. And if I have to, you know, design a system, I'll try to find help on particular code if I need it. And then the second one, I refactor the code to make it a little bit cleaner. And then the third project is the one you guys see in the YouTube video. So I'm still out there looking for help and stuff too. You know, it's a little bit less now than it used to be, but you know, I don't want to get too far off track, but no, you know, we all just got to kind of, you know, take our steps and, you know, just ask questions when they come along, you know, so don't be afraid to ask questions. That's why I created the Discord, just, you know, hopefully get everybody in there. All right, so now what do we need to do? We need to be able to pick up an item. I'm just going to reutilize the sword, or the berry, I think. Let me go. I closed that window for some reason. Let's go weapons, BP sword. And I'm going to give this one a static mesh. Let's find something. I don't think this capsule is being used, so we'll get it. The capsule static mesh. The thumbnail, I'm going to give it the, just going to give it the red berries for now. Obviously, you're going to want to get your own thumbnail. Stack size is only going to be 1, should die negative. So that should be good. Now the equipment type, make sure you set this. We're going to go hand. Okay. So we've got that. Make sure you compile it and save it. Remember, with me, I always say compile and save it, but I usually only compile it. Sometimes I'm still in the habit of hitting Control Shift and S, but I have this save on compile. I always have it saved on compile. So anytime I compile, and what that does too, when you press play, it automatically compiles the game for you, all your open tabs. It compiles everything, so it's simultaneously going to save it for you as well. So that's why I kind of like that. So, but I'm still in the habit sometimes hitting Control Shift S. It's always good to make sure you have that. All right. So we've got that now. I'm not going to worry about all the main details in here. We've got a thumbnail and we've got a static mesh so we can represent it into the world. So now if we were to come out and to the world, we should be able to drop a sword into, oh no. Why isn't it let me? Hold on here. There we go. Not quite sure why it wouldn't let me drop a sword into the world. Oh, are these, hold on, let me see, abstract. These might be set as, no, they're not set as abstract. Right, so you want to make sure to abstract. If you don't know what abstract means, it tells you whether the class should exist in the world or not, so you can drop it in. All your parent items should never really belong in the world. So if we come back out here to like our BP weapon, this should be set as abstract. Open up full blueprint. This should be set as abstract. There's a class setting. Abstract, yes. And let's go ahead and save that. And then we come back out here into sword. And that shouldn't, I don't think that tick box is inherited with children. Okay, so that's set as abstract, but it's not going to affect the sword or the axe. And I am curious of why. Oh, yeah, okay. Duh, I know why we can't drop that, because this is just an object. Sorry. So if we come out here now and we go to inventory and items, BP world items. So now come out here now, and now we drop a BP world item. Actually, we don't even have to do that. Let's go Control Z. We could just take this and we can convert this into BP world item 2 details. The item, we're going to make it BP sword. There we go. It changed the icon. So now this is a sword, right? So we're not going to be able to do anything with this yet, but this is a sword. All right. So let's jump back out of here so my computer doesn't get laggy with that going. So what do we need to do when we pick up an item? You're going to have to be able to distinguish it here, right? So this code here, we're in the AC inventory component. Sorry, I'm just walking through this. I didn't really do any prep work with this moving in here. We're going to have to do a little bit of work in here for the drag and drop and picking up of the item. Okay, so what we need is we need the interact. So functions, use item. Okay, so if we come in here to, I'm just going to open this up again. I didn't do any prep work in here. Let's go food. I think we did. The use function in here, or interact. Let's see. Sorry about this, guys. Just trying to walk backwards through my code here. So we got the use item. Where? Go back here to the parent and okay, we're going to have to account for the opening up of the equipment inventory as well. I'm going to come in, worry about the UI in a second. I'm just trying to walk through this a little bit. Okay. All right, so interact process item. So when we interact with the item, let's go real quick. I just want to walk up here to then let me hide that real quick in the HUD. This, and let's go visibility. We'll go collapsed. And then we'll bring this online in just a little bit. Now we hit play. Okay. Okay, so we picked it up. We're able to pick it up because we're not distinguishing behind it with it here, but it says none. So we can change that to sword. So we come back in here to sword, go to class defaults, display name. It's set as none. Let's just go sword. So that way we know we're picking up the sword. So now if we play and we come over here, we pick that up. There you go. It says sword. We've got one. We'll only be able to pick up one at a time. But so now you can see we distinguish with the sword. Sorry, I'm just trying to, like I said, just trying to walk through this a little bit for my own sake as well. We've got, so now we got the sword. We got to be able to pick it up. So now we don't want the sword. Well, the sword can go into our regular inventory, right? So really, when you're picking it up, that actually acted properly. You don't always want to just be able to pick up the sword into, I'm going to hit play again, into your equipment slot, right? So if we hit E and we pick that up, you just want whatever you pick up to go in your regular inventory. So the key to the inventory, or to the equipment slot, is being able to just drag it and put it into that slot designated for that. Okay. So now that's what we need to do next. So now when we open up our inventory, and I'm going to change, you know what? Let me go like this, go to the primary HUD, and I don't think we can change that. So I'm going to actually delete this right now, this extra equipment window. And I'm going to come out here, go to our widgets inventory window. I'm just going to right click on this, and I'm just going to duplicate this. And I'm going to go WBP underscore equipment window. And this, again, it's just a duplicate. It's essentially the same thing. I'm just doing this so I can change some things in here. So we're just going to go come in here, go equipment. All right. And then if we come back over here to the primary HUD, user created, and you can see that we've got WPB equipment window. We don't want that there. We want to drag it on the canvas panel. And I'm just going to get rid of the WBP. Just leave it as equipment window. Again, size to content, and then just drag it and put it out here. So there we go. Now we got the equipment. I'm going to set its visibility again to collapsed. So that way it's only open when we want it to be open. And then come back in here to the true first person. So now we're going to want to open that. So if we come back here to the first true person, when we open our inventory, so what's the logical steps? What does it do? We hit the button. It's going to run the sequence, come in here, hide our widgets, add the mapping context. Okay. Then it's going to open player inventory. Okay. So when it opens player inventory, it comes up here, updates the inventory HUD. So we'll have to do that. We can also go, what we'll want to do here as well. We don't want to show player inventory yet. Remember, we've got an extra inventory here. So you're going to want to update your equipment inventory as well. So we'll grab that, drag off and go update inventory HUD. Okay. And we want to update inventory HUD. That's just the call function. Or is this? What is this? Delete. Update inventory HUD message. All right, yeah, we want to send the message to it, I think. Yeah, the target is that. There we go. No, what the heck? What am I doing here? Target is BP first person. So update inventory. Okay, so we're calling this. Okay, so update inventory. Okay, so yeah, so we want to call this same function again. Sorry. Update inventory HUD. Call the function on ourself. There we go. And what we want to pass in is the equipment inventory there. So now it's going to come in here. It's going to run the primary inventory. It's going to call this function. It's going to update on the primary HUD. It's going to call this one. It's going to update the equipment inventory, do the same thing. Then it's going to open on the primary HUD. It's going to call it show player inventory. Okay, so if we come over here to show the primary HUD graph, show player inventory. All right, you may want to do something different again with your are you guys still with me? Did we change something? Just telling me that it doesn't see my inventory box and update inventory. I haven't changed. All you've seen me change is what we've changed. I haven't changed anything. Can you guys see and hear me right now? Because it seems like I'm kind of lagging right now. Still there? Okay. Because mine is spinning. Let me hit refresh on my screen here. Yeah, I've got the death wheel, so you can hear me. Are you still getting visuals? Is that still coming through too? Okay, there we go. I saw a little bit of action on the channel. Okay. Yeah, that was weird. I just looked over and had the spinners, so that's probably just my internet connection, but still says my stream health is healthy. So, but that's all it says is healthy. So that doesn't help me much. All right. So no, Aaron, we haven't really changed anything. Did we change something? It's telling me that it doesn't see my inventory box in update inventory. No, I haven't done anything. And remember, Aaron, there's going to be a VOD on this. You can, you don't have to hang on every word that I'm doing here. You can come back and watch it again. But no, I haven't changed anything in there, because sometimes, like I did earlier in the update inventory, I actually haven't done anything really in update inventory. All I did was check to see, where are we? Update inventory. All I did was I changed this, but I drug off of here and was just showing you guys some testing stuff. But the only thing we changed in update inventory is this. Okay. So that's all we've done. Show player inventory now. So now in here, we're grabbing our primary inventory window, and we're setting this visibility. So now we want to kind of do the same thing to the, let's just go and create some space here. So that's the player inventory window. So we want to grab the equipment inventory and set visibility to this, just like we did with the other one. Okay. And then plug it in line. So now if we play it, should see, if we hit tab, there we go, our equipment popped up, hit tab again, and it goes away. Okay, so we don't have anything populated in here yet. We'll get to that, but we got it opening and closing. So that's all it took to do that. Again, the UI, I'm just giving you guys kind of basics, because even in my original videos, that's a tough one, because that's a tough one because, sorry, I was distracted looking at my stream health and stuff. It's going to be, you know, even in a production game, even if I use this game for this, what I'm doing in my videos is a production game, the UI is going to change, right? You really got to customize it to your own. I'm just showing you tips and techniques on how to do this type of a system. Again, everything I show you guys in all my videos is just, you know, take the fundamentals that I'm showing you. Don't be afraid to play with the project. That's, you know, if you watch my current series on the Perforce really is going to be a lifesaver. I like using it as a solo, even as just as a solo dev, because you don't have to be afraid to test anything. You just go in and you try a whole bunch of things, and if it breaks, you just don't commit it. You just don't send it to the Perforce server, or if you do, you can still step back a year from now. You can go back to that very save, that very commit you had beforehand. So it's a good thing to do, you know, especially learning out. People think you have to be on a team in order to do it, but you don't have to be. Okay. All right. So now we need to populate slots into, our widget, and we do that here in update inventory. Okay, so now we're checking is equipment, and if it is, let's just double check here. We've got one thing in our inventory. Let's just go right. Print string is always your friend. So let's go. What do we want? We want to. Did we check that? Hold on a second here. Come back here to first person. Let's make sure equipment inventory. Do we check? Oh, see, we didn't check. Make sure you check is equipment. So we hit the check mark there, right? Then make sure you save it. We come back out here to primary HUD. Where is it? There it is, primary HUD. All right, so now if it is equipment, we're going to get hello. All right, and let's just make sure that it's seeing that, right? So if we hit tab, we're going to get hello up here because it's seeing this one. It only said hello once, so you know that it's only seeing one of them. The other one's being populated in here. Okay, so that's good. We got that. Now we're using the same thing. So essentially, we just need to do the same thing in here, right? So we need to clear children. So if we grab our equipment window, let's get that. And then, so what are we doing in here? So inventory window, we don't have to worry about checking get owner. I don't think, just off the top of my head, I don't think we do. Let's go inventory box. We want to get the inventory box. Again, we're just copying what we're doing down here because this is where we're populating everything. So we want to go clear children. Okay. And then from the inventory component, we want to essentially, hold on a second here. Let's go Control C, or just go Control. I'm always afraid of hitting Control W. It's Control D. Yeah, there we go. Control G. Now remember here, this inventory component, I know it's the same thing right here, but we're passing in the inventory component, right? So this function is being called twice. Okay, so I think that's where a lot of confusion has come in, at least in our talks, Aaron, is right. You have to think of these as two separate units. So if we come back here to the first person character, these are the exact same, right? They are this exact same blueprint, has the same function, same everything. But because we came in here and we have two things, two of them right here, they're two separate instances. Think of them as twins, right? They look exactly the same, but they are completely opposite. They act independently of one another. Just because they look the same doesn't mean they are the same, right? So you can call this the same functions you call on here, the same properties you can call on here, you can call on this one as well. It's the same thing with our storage, right? We take the same thing and put it on a storage unit. Doesn't mean we could see our player's inventory in that storage unit. We do that because of this. That's one reason why we could see the player inventory when we open up the storage unit, is because we're calling it right here, right? But the storage unit itself doesn't know anything about your primary inventory. It's separate, right? So think of it as separate. We name it this, but this is just for our own organization. This has nothing to do, whatever you name your project or your components here, plays no role on what it is. I could name this fart box inventory. It doesn't mean it's going to be only for farts, right? We just do that to identify it for us within the editor so we can use it, right? You don't want to use the same names. We could do primary inventory, but how confusing is that going to be, right? So think of them as completely separate. While they're the same, they're completely separate. Okay, so that's, I think, where a lot of your confusion was coming in, Aaron, when we talked about this before. Okay, so all right, so now we come in here, we're doing the same thing, right? We're passing in the inventory component back here in true first person. Remember, it's calling that function, which is right here, update inventory. It's calling it twice. We're calling it the first time on the primary inventory, comes through and updates the primary inventory. Then it passes in our equipment inventory. Okay, on the second time. So when we come back over here, when it's coming in, it's checking, is that second one we're passing in, is it equipment? Yes, it is. So we're doing the same thing, and we're just getting the inventory component coming from this right here. Okay, so whatever is being passed in is going to be the inventory component that's being used. Okay, so this one is different than this one because of the information we're passing in. Okay, that makes a little bit of sense. Right. And we currently don't have anything in our, that is the equipment you're in, right? No, there is no equipment, Aaron. There is no equipment. Nope, there is no equipment, right? All we did, we created a separate window, right? But all it was a duplicate. This is all we did. We created a duplicate of our inventory window. That's all we did. There is no equipment. Right? You got to remember that. This is the exact same thing. You can have a separate HUD or however you want to do it. Like I said, I'm not going to really design your HUDs for you, right? This is going to be what we're going to do here is the exact same thing. Actually, okay, so let me go back over here. So yes, right here, what we're doing is we're grabbing the equipment window right there. Sorry, Aaron, I thought, because that was some of your confusion you had before, was trying to distinguish. So yeah, equipment window, that's what we're putting in right here. So we're checking, is equipment? Yes. That's why we're running this check right here. Ultimately, that's all this check, that variable we put in there, B is equipment. That all that does is tell us in our HUD which one of these windows to call. So if you create another equipment window, regardless of how you do it, like I said, I'm not going to design it because there's different ways I would do it than doing this right here, but that would create a lot more work for me to try to do on this, and there's no point in that. You can figure out your own HUDs, your own interface, but I would have something different. But if you create this window here, then you drop it in here like we did, and then just use it that way, you're still going to be, you need to expose it. Where we at? Primary HUD. You need to expose this as variable. So in here in the graph, now we're telling it this is equipment, so update this window. Okay. So this inventory box most likely won't exist unless you're using the exact same widget as I am right now. This inventory box isn't going to be relevant to you again, unless you're using the exact same thing. Because if we come over here, we created this variable called, if we come out here to graph, inventory box, right? And this is, if we come back here to the designer, this is, where is it? Inventory box right there. Right. So it's calling this box, it's pulling this box off out of here. But this is a, what is it? This is a scroll box, right? Because it has many children flows and it wraps. It has many children. There's other ways you can do this here. But so whatever you have here, name it whatever you want, or whatever it is, that's what you want to call wherever you're going to put the slots, whatever you have organizing all your slots is what you're going to call. And I hate this because I'm talking to you guys, but I keep pointing at my screen. So this right here, the inventory box. So that may be a different name for you, depends on your system. But that's what we're doing. We're calling the main thing here that we're doing is we're calling this, right? We're calling the window that we put into our HUD. Okay. And then we're calling whatever is controlling the slots, which is this one. And then we're going to clear its children. We're going to loop through the items of the inventory that's being passed in, and then we're going to take those items and put them into that box. So right here, we got inventory box. Again, we need to, let's go Control D. We need to fix that. Plug this, go inventory box. We're gonna have to fix this one because I copied and pasted it. This is linked to this one, so we're just going to get rid of that, and then just plug in the new one. Okay, so that was just from copy and pasting is all that one did. All right, so now we're going to come in here. Everything should work, but we don't have anything in our inventory. I'm just going to compile it, make sure we don't get any errors. Let's run it just to make sure. All right, even though I'm going to pick this up, it's still going to show it in our regular inventory. Okay, and then we're not going to be able to distinguish, right? We got the sword. We're able to put the sword in here. There we go. We just created a separate inventory, right? So this is now in the equipment inventory. Okay. We open and close it. We come over here. Let's open up this. We're going to take out of here and we can put into this, right? We've got 3 different inventories, right? 2 of which are on the character. 1 is in the storage unit, but there are 3, even though it's using the exact same inventory component blueprint, there are 3 individual owners of it. So we go like that. So we got 3, 1, and then the sword, and then we back. Oops. And then we back out of there and press the wrong button. And let's try that again. Let's go E, and open this up. So we got the sword over here. We got that here. And if we back out of our tab, even if we don't open that up, there we go. We got this. You can't even see the sword because it's inside of this inventory. So there we go. So now we need to prevent the bread from coming into our equipment inventory, right? We want to be able to take our sword and put it into other inventories, but we don't want to take bread, right? You can't wear bread as your helmet. I mean, you probably could, but you just get eaten and you wouldn't be, you wouldn't be anything very strong or defensive. So, all right, so now we back out of there. So now we've got this setting the children. When we update it, we're just updating the UI. So that's all this one did right there. Tells us what we're doing. So all the functionality for the drag and drop, that all resides right into here. Okay, so now we need to come in here and we need to tell this to check for equipment items. If the item being passed in is of type equipment, then we want to continue doing what we need to do, right? We put it in there. But if it's not, then we don't want to do anything. Okay, so what do we do here? So we've got, just kind of go over here what we're doing in our on drag drop. We are in our AC inventory component on drag drop. This is where, again, where we handle all our drag drop operations. Okay, so if we come over here, hold on a second. Trying to get a little bit better quality on my stream because I'm kind of watching the stream at the same time as I'm doing this. So yeah, so in our on drag drop, we're in the AC inventory component. And before I go any further, Aaron or whoever else might be here, Ben, if you're still here, Do you guys have any questions so far? How go ahead and ask it, Aaron. You know, if you've got questions still, if I'm still confusing you, then go ahead and ask it, and I'll do what I can to explain it. But I don't want to get into the drag drop operations until until I'm sure you guys understand the update inventory and what we did in here, the difference between all the inventory components that we are using. I want to make sure everybody understands the fundamentals of that before I get into the drag drop. Plug in the return node. Always try to make sure you have a return node in all your functions. Take a drink here, eat a potato chip. Chips, great thing to eat on stream, right? I'm not seeing any comments come through. Okay, good. You do understand so far. Yeah, it's being recorded. It should be. That's why I did the live stream. Is generally speaking. Let me double check my settings. But yeah, it should automatically go to my channel when it's done. Customization, live chat. Yeah, it should. I think I've got that set up somewhere. Let me turn this on. There, save that. Yeah, it should automatically save to my channel. It did last time. I didn't have to do anything special. So yeah, all my live streams should go straight to the channel, so you can watch it over and over again. So I'm trying to just be. There's a couple of you in here, so it's kind of comes and go. Everybody comes in and pops out. So, but yeah, it'll be there. So you know, if you do have to run away or whatever, everybody should still have access to it. All right. Okay. So if you've got a grasp on it so far, let's come in here now to our AC inventory component on drag drop. Remember, we're coming in here and we're just checking, doing our main checks in here, getting the items. We're updating quantity as we're passing it in. Remember, we did this in one of the last ones because of split stacks. And then we did a lot of this. We split up this code quite a bit. It got a little bit bigger because of the split stack. So we're essentially going to end up having to do the same thing with checking the, just kind of expanding in here on this. So after it's updating all the quantities here. So what are we doing here? What this first branch? What are we doing? Well, I wrote a comment. Are they the same item type? Okay, so does this item that we're passing in, or that we're currently dragging with our mouse cursor, so if this is the item, we're dragging it, is it the exact same as the one we're trying to drop it onto, right? So we're trying to drop it on top of this one. Are they the exact same? Okay, that means, am I putting bread on top of bread? Okay, then cool. You know, let's see if we can combine the stack. So if we are, we're coming up here and then we're checking, we're going to add the item. Is there any amounts remaining? If there is, and we're sending it back out. Okay. So false. I think I need a return node on here. Not that it makes too big of a difference because this is going to be deleted when I'm done. But you should have the return node up there. For some reason, I didn't do that there. But yeah, so we're coming up here, we're checking, we're adding the item, we're combining items. These items are back, remaining quantity adjusted. So that's all we're doing right here. So if it is the same, then we can drop it on there. We check to see if there's any leftover items, and we just kind of do our fancy little stacking, restacking, and combining of the similar items. Okay. Now the same thing can happen here, right? We can go, are they the same? And then check, is it equipment, right? It shouldn't matter, right? So what we need to do here is because we don't have to check if what type of item it is at this stage, right? Because they're the same. So we're not pulling in bread and trying to put it on top of a sword, for example, right? So if that was happen, then it would run this branch. We'll handle that there. So in this case, if we're using equipment as, hey Ben, as if we're using the same logic here where we're taking a bread and we're trying to put it on a sword, it's not going to match up. Okay. But if we're taking a sword and dropping it on top of a sword, then essentially it can handle this right here. We're just going to swap out. We're going to swap out the swords, right? That's all it does here. Because if we come out here, and I'll give you an example here, even though it doesn't look like it, if I come out here and I pick this up, if I drop the bread here on top of this other bread, essentially it's just kind of swapping this out. It's taking the way originally that's how it was done. It's just kind of swapping them out, but it's really just adding new quantities to it. So if I hold shift and split it here, right, and now it just adds those to that. But going like this, it's really just kind of swapping it out, right? So that's kind of what it's doing in here. Right, not quite exactly, but ultimately that's all it's doing. So that's going to be the same thing. Is if we drop a sword on top of the other sword, it's going to take it and swap it out. But just for posterity, let's just go ahead and go like this. We're going to actually could probably create a little bit more space. Let's go like this. Okay. So we got this one. So let's go. They're the same. Let's check. Are they both equipment? So let's go. Drag slot, under drag slot. Let's go under drag slot and then drag slot. Okay, so we've got these. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to check. Let's go under drag slot. If we're not trying to drop an item on top of the equipment slot, then we don't really care, right? So because we can take our sword and we can drop it into a regular inventory, so that part doesn't matter, right? It's what we're trying to drop onto the under drag slot. This is the controlling inventory. Okay, so if we go like this and we go break. Okay, we go break and drag off of this and go is child of, and we go equipment, BP equipment. Okay, so if the under drag slot is a child of BP equipment, hold on a second here. See, that's probably not going to really work. So what we need to do is we need to check is the inventory. Let me see. You know what? We can go like this. Let's go ahead and delete this. We've got the owning inventory. Let's go. B is get is equipment. Okay. So is the inventory of the under drag slot. No, see, that still doesn't work. Okay. And it's hard to see. What's hard to see? Can you zoom in? Oh, a little bit more. Yeah. I can, but it's kind of hard sometimes. I'll try to remember to be zoomed in. I know that's a problem on my videos too. I do that sometimes. I stay a little too zoomed out. But I'm just trying to think here, because here's part of the problem solving. That's kind of what's nice about doing this live, is you kind of get a little bit of my what I do thinking about this as I go through the problem solving. Okay, so while we could check is it equipment, this just means, are we dragging a sword on top of a sword, right? Well, that would be okay in this instance, because it doesn't matter if the sword belongs to let me see, the owning inventory. Okay, no, because okay, so no, this will work because the owning inventory, no matter what item this is, it's every time it's owning inventory is going to be no. Let's see, because we got to know the window, right? We want to go primary HUD. Where is drag and drop on drop? Hold on a second, guys. Detect drag. That is on slot. Hold on a second. Let me go. Inventory slot. Drag and drop. On drag detected. Set drag is a function we created. Okay. On drag detect, and we're coming here. We're setting the quantities. Sorry for the dead air. I'm just trying to mentally work through this here. So we need to detect somewhere along the lines, right? What we need to do is we need to ensure that whatever we drag into this has to be an equipment. It can't, essentially, that enum we set for the equipment, it can't equal none. Okay, so that's really the only check we have to do, right? When it comes to the individual slots, when you do your inventory, you're probably going to want one slot for your helmet, one slot, and you only want helmets in that one slot. Again, design your own inventory or design your own UI, how you want to do that. The fundamental is just the point of this is just extending your my inventory system to be used as equipment. So the HUD here, that or the UI, that's going to be independent on what you want to do for your games, because there's 1,000 different ways you can do or more that you can do a UI. So yeah, so we need to, when we're dragging and dropping an item, we need to check, is this what we're dropping into the inventory window we're dropping into? So this could probably, how are we passing this along? Let's see something. Let me test something here. Inventory slot. Don't do any of this. I want to test something here. This is just me kind of working through. Let me go get parent. Okay, I want to see what name pops across for this real quick. So every item that we're going to get that comes through, or every slot, I'm going to give this a duration of 10. That's fine. Only 10 things are going to pass through. So let's hit play. So now if we open this, actually, I guess I will have to pick something up here. Inventory box. Okay. Inventory box. All right. So the owner of this slot is the inventory box. So let's go. Get the parent of this, and then get parent. So now we're getting two parents. So the parent of the inventory box, open this up, is scroll box. Okay. Or I wonder if I can go, is child, no. Add child, remove, or this is a, get parent is widget. So we don't want to do that. I'm thinking because we could go get parent, get parent, get parent, get parent, get parent. Then I think this one would probably, but this is kind of ugly. We don't necessarily want to do this. I think this will probably give me what I was looking for. Overlay, see, no. So then we'd have to go. I'm just trying to find a way that we can get programmatically the main parent. So now that just shows window. It doesn't tell me equipment window. Okay, so that's not going to work. So how do we detect on drag detected? So let's see, we could go. So we got this, we come up and update inventory. So how can we tell the difference for what we could do is for this, since we're coming in here and we're setting these items, hold on a second, WBP. Okay, so what if, again, this is all kind of down and dirty. I'd probably come up with a little bit different way of doing this, but how can we dictate what goes in here? So let's come back here to, I think this will work. Come back to the inventory slot, right? So in here, let's create a new variable, and we're going to call this one owning inventory window, or let's just call it owning window or owning widget. Yeah, let's call it owning widget. Okay. And we're going to change this to let's change this to a widget, user widget right here. I think this will work. Let's go user widget, and we want to instance editable, expose on spawn. Okay, so hit compile. Make sure you hit compile. So then now when we come out here to the primary HUD in the update inventory, so now we should see with our slots, when we're sitting here setting the slots, let's just go compile. It's should update most of this. It didn't. Right click, go refresh nodes. There we go. So if you don't get it, there you go. Refresh nodes, right click on it. So now we have our exposed owning widget. I'm going to move this up just a little bit. Give me some space. So now we've got the owning widget variable. Let's right click on this one. Owning widget. Change this. Okay. So now what we want to do, so right here, we're going to pull off of this because what we're passing through right here is one of the either the primary or secondary. Not that it really matters. This could, we could even right here for this particular instance, we could leave this blank if we really wanted to. Actually, I'm going to put in another reroute node here. We can really leave this as none, but just to make sure that for completeness, may have this down the road, do that there. And then for here, this is the equipment window, right? So, because we're checking equipment, so we get this one, and then we just we're passing our window into here, okay? So now with that, if we come back into, I think into our slot, into our set drag, let me see. Okay, inventory slot. We're setting this stuff here. So we're setting drag. So we want to go on drop. Clear drag brushes we're setting here. Then we come into our slot drag operation. So I'm just going through the process of when we drop it, right? Because that's what we want to check is when we drop it. So if we can do this check before our inventory, then that would be fantastic. So see, okay, so right here we have slot references under drag slot. So we've got that right here. So is it valid? Is the under drag slot valid? It is at this point here. So then if it's true, we want to take our under drag. Let's get this, and if our under drag is get owning widget, okay, and if this is equal to WBP equipment window, and then just to make sure that this works, I'm going to throw in a print string right here. And that's all I'm going to do. I think I took out that other print string. So now if I hit play, so now if I drag an item into the equipment slot, it should say true, and it doesn't. Okay, so that's why we run checks here. So let's just go like this then. Let's go, instead of true or false, let's get the owning widget name. Hit play. Let's see what happens there. Equipment window. It does say equipment window. Oh, I think I know why. So if we go cast to WBP equipment window, we can make this a pure. Okay, and now if we go like that, now this should probably work. It was showing the name of it, but the name, it doesn't mean that it's the actual item, because when we do equal equals, it's checking, is it that exact item? So now we cast it, and is it equal to that? Now if we hit play, this should work, I think. True. There we go. We drop it here. False. True. Okay. Again, this is kind of dirty with this casting. You probably want to find a different way to do this. If anything, you could set like an interface, and you can kind of have it maybe ping your owning widget to say, hey, this is who I am, you know, whatever. But yeah, so this, I'm just trying to think, there's better ways to do this. Okay. So don't don't look for better ways to do this, right? Again, this is just about trying to adapt my system. Okay. So I would go through in my own projects, and I may end up doing this for videos down the road, but um, you know, for now it is just, as I said, down and dirty. So we've got this. So now we come in here, we're checking, is the underslot this? If it is, then what we need to do is go payload. We've got the payload item right here. Okay. So from here, let's go get, let's just go where is it? Break. That's what we need to do. We need to break this. Then from here, let's grab the item and go defaults, get class defaults. Okay. I'm going to create a little bit of space in here. Hopefully you guys can see all this. I'm trying to stay zoomed in best I can. All right. So now from here, the class defaults, all we really need is we need to know is our payload. We're getting the item of the payload. So we're confirming that, let's run another branch. Okay, so we're coming in here. We do have a valid under drag slot. That's important. Make sure you write it in here. Then we're checking, is this a child, what we're trying to drag onto, is it an equipment window? Again, casting is not the best way for it. I'd have to spend more time to think of a better way, but I don't want to sit here with dead space trying to figure it out. So that's why I'm doing it this way. Please keep that in mind. All right. So the equipment type. So we have this now, the equipment type off of the true here. If this is an equipment window, we need to make sure the payload of what we're actually dragging with the mouse cursor, is this not equal enum to none? Or let's see, we could probably go, instead of is equal, actually, let's go, because we want to abort out of this. Or no, we don't. What do we want to do? Let's see. Because we don't care. I wonder, let me see, instead of this cast, what if we go over here to, real quick, let me go over here to the equipment window. I'm going to test this. If I just put in, actually back to the graph, if I put in a new variable, B is equipment, compile it, and I just make this defaulted because this is the equipment window. It's true. I'm hitting yes. So if I come back into here real quick to the slot drag operation, and instead of casting this, if I just go, let me compile this to make sure it updates its links. Get is yeah, because it's a user widget. So either way, we have to cast it because we're bringing it in as, you know what? Instead of casting, what we could do is we just go, let's come back here. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to help. Even though it's down dirty, I don't want to leave you totally in the dumps here. Okay, so if we come back out here to the inventory slot, okay, we created the owning widget. We made it a user widget. I'm going to make this just because this would be better than casting, because you want to try to avoid your casting. We only really care if this is equipment. Now, if you have other widgets that you want specific, like your equipment, where it only You can only put things in that inventory if it belongs to a certain group. Then you could probably follow the same logic. You have to figure out probably a different way, maybe use an enum or something like that, do a switch, whatever. But if we come in here and we just go make it of type WBP equipment window object reference. Okay, so now if we come back out to set drag, okay, or well, let's just compile it. Okay, we come back out here to the primary HUD in the update inventory where we put that equipment window in there. So we have the equipment window going in there. We don't want to do that here. Okay, so I'm going to delete that reroute node there. We don't want to do that there because this isn't going to be, if we compile this and probably refresh just to make sure that it understands everything. Where is it? Refresh. Okay. So this now is, you can see there it says its type is a WBP equipment window object reference. So if we try to plug this in right here, it's not going to let us because it's not of that type. So we'll leave that blank. All right. So now we don't need, where did I do that? The equipment window. We don't need this variable here, I don't think. We'll delete it for now. I don't think we need that. So if we come back over here, again, slot drag operation. Sorry if I'm jumping around and confusing you guys. Sorry, Aaron, I was deep in thought. I didn't see your question. Share this live, please. I need to save this. Turquoise, just on my channel. It's gonna go saved to my channel in my live playlist when it's done. If you're still here, just go ahead, share this live, please. Yeah, so you can go check the VOD when the upload is done. Once we're done live streaming here, it should be live then. And then Ben, casting isn't too bad. A lot of people get worried about. No, it's not too bad if you do it in small amounts. But the problem with casting is it really does make your code less modular. So you could do it within your project in small amounts. Casting only is really big. Like if you're trying to spawn like 1,000 zombies or something into the world, and you have to cast in there to get that's when it's bad if you're calling it repetitive times in a row. But the other thing too is by casting here, if I were to try to migrate this to another project, even if the equipment window isn't part of something I need in the next one, it's going to be bound to it. It's going to migrate over because now it's bound to it because of the cast. So you want to try to avoid that the best you can. And let's see. Yeah. Live stuff is good for this, Aaron. I do think it is. You kind of get the process of it, but let's see, Ben, I have a question. If I'm casting on begin play and then calling the character from that cast on different events, does it the cast on? No, when you cast, if you're saving the reference, that's the thing. If you're going to cast, save the reference. Yeah, it makes sense. When you cast, if you save this reference of a cast, it's not casting again. You've already got that item once. It's only when you call this event multiple times. So on begin play is only called once. It could be called multiple times in the case of like our inventory slot, the begin play here on our inventory slot, or the event construct, which is essentially begin play. Every time, since we're creating 10 of these slots per inventory right now, right? So if I hit play and I open up my inventory, it's being called 10 times. So that begin play is being called 10 times in quick succession, all within one tick, right? So things like that are bad, right? So when it's being called multiple times. But in the case of something like what we are doing here, if we're only calling it once when this drop is called and storing it, or what I usually do, like here in my true first person character, we come down here, we've got the primary HUD in begin play. I cast it here, begin play. We come up here, we cast it, and we save the player controller right here. And then we save our primary HUD. So this is kind of casting right there, but we'll use this player controller. We're casting the player controller and saving it. So now we have the casted player controller. So yeah, so then I label it REF, usually when I'm doing it like here, player control, usually I label it player controller ref for reference. But yes, this is now just a reference to this cast. So if you change player controllers or something, in this case, you can't really change player controllers, but if you change whatever this variable is, then it's going to be different, right? So you'd have to recast back and forth to it if that's what you needed. But if you have one solid variable that persists, in the case of this being the player controller, this gets me the player controller that is the world object. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And then so calling the reference. So yeah, so anytime I use this player controller, yeah, I hope I just answered. Every time I call this player controller, it's just calling the reference stored in here, because everything when it's created, right, it's given a memory address. Everything ultimately is just a memory address. Yeah, everything's just a memory address, and it gets stored there. So what we want to do is we want to store that memory address to a variable so we can have access to it. So anytime our player controller changes, so whether it's a sword, let's say it's our sword that we have in our hand, we cast to our specific sword, then we can access all its variables and stuff, you know, its durability, its damage, all that stuff. It'll keep updated if we have this object referencing that exact object. Anytime a variable on that object changes, it's going to reflect in this variable. So yeah, so hopefully that makes sense. So if you cast and save it, then it's not a wasted cast. But if you're casting and just letting it fall into the ether, you could probably find a better way to do things, which is what I'm trying to do right here. So now that we're passing that, if we get the owning widget, if we go is valid, is all we have to check. So just the function is valid right here. And let's go even before this. Let's just make sure that is true, that this is working. So I'm going to disconnect this. I'm just going to hook this back up real quick. Go print string. Let's just make sure now that this should pass true now without the cast. Come in here, open this up. If we drop it on here, it should say false. Drag it in here, it should say true. There we go, true. All right, so there we did it without a cast and without making it too messy, because it can get messy when you're simply trying to avoid a cast. It can get rather messy, so just be mindful of that. I mean, there's a point of trying to avoid a cast and just making your code just totally unreadable, and in this case, we were able to do it without making it ugly. All we had to do was add a single variable to our slot. Okay, so everybody good to this point? So now what we're doing, again, if it's not good, let me say I'm going to continue until I see a comment over there. Take a drink of my soda. And real quick before I continue, let me go. It would be bad of me if I didn't do this here. Log in. Hold on a second. I've seen a lot of people using interfaces, returning the self on the blueprint. Yeah, you can return self. It just depends in context, right? You don't always have to cast. Self is a live object. Again, returning self returns the memory address. If you think about it on the computer science of it all, it just returns the memory address of that exact object. So yes, it is. Self is giving you the current active object, but self doesn't always mean, if you need to drag a variable off of self is an object type. It's not necessarily, so if I drag, let's just go self here, even though this isn't an interface, they're all the same. So if I do self, you can see right there, it's an object reference. So even though I just self here, it's returning itself, it's returning the memory address of this slot drag operation. And actually we are inside the blueprint. So we are inside the slot drag operation widget blueprint, which this isn't. I don't know why this is. Oh, okay, it is a widget blueprint, but it's coming off as an object reference. So I've got under drag slot right here. So if I drag off of here and I try to get under drag slot, it is getting it. Huh. You can. It says object reference right there, but okay, cool. Wasn't sure if self you could, but get that. So yeah, self will return itself. I thought it was just the object reference, but nothing like being proven wrong on a stream. So there we go. That's fun. All right, hold on a second here. Let me get this real quick. So I'm trying to get something here. All right, so sorry guys, I was just trying to get this. So I don't have. Let me go back here so I can read your chat a little bit better. Yeah, they just used call functions from the BP using the message. Yeah, self is good to use. It's better than casting. If you're within there, you can't always use self everywhere, but you could pass it through. You could pass it through function calls as parameters, things of that nature. I'm odd place at the moment with Unreal. I know something likes the basics, but not really sure where to go now. Yeah, it just depends on what you want to do. We could talk some stuff. I can help you work through a project if you want. Time is a little short for me these days. That's why my videos kind of been down. I'm still trying to figure out my body schedule for that matter, and trying to find, because by the time I get off work, come home, cook dinner, and have family dinner, it's been a little tough for me to come up here, and especially not summertime. It's super hot up here in my room recording, and which that's just an excuse. I don't mind the heat. I love the heat actually, but it's just been tough for me to try to find that balance. I will find that balance. I appreciate everybody being patient with me about that. But here I wanted to a good start project is. I mean, it depends on what you're in, Ben. Let's get through this a little bit. We'll do some open chat like that here as I get to the end, but we're 2 hours into this, and I don't want to. Thanks, Bishop. Have a good night. Yeah, thanks for coming, bud. Look for the VOD if you want to catch further in on this and get some more information on it. But appreciate you being here. So I do want to put this here for you guys. I don't have, and again, this is totally up to I hate begging, and I'm trying not to beg here, but I don't have like super chats or anything on like that. You guys, if you are so inclined, then you can drop me a donation there. You don't even have to be a member. You can give a donation of $1 or whatever you want. If I know a lot of these live streams, everybody has a super chat on. I didn't turn any of that on. So if you are, or if you're watching this VOD, you can go down in the description. Then the link will be down there as well. If you would like to, tip your waiter, as it were. So, okay. Anyway, so back to this. That's there. I'm done panhandling for now. Got that link. So what we're doing here now, so we're coming in here. Is this equipment slot? Then yes. So now we need to make sure, and really, we probably don't even want to do this here because of the way we're handling some things. So let me go like this. We could probably go on drag drop. So let's come back here to the inventory component. So let's add on the on drag drop. We're inside the on drag drop here. I'm going to add a new input, and I'm going to call this B is equipment. Okay. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass that value in from here because we're not passing the actual slot in. That's why I'm doing it here in the slot drag operation, is because this is where we have the actual slot, right? The payload and the drag slot. These are the actual slots of this. So I can delete this, because now all we're going to do is, let me clean this up. Sorry, didn't need to go through all this. So you guys kind of caught me. This live streaming without any prep. It's just, you know, me working through issues or just trying to problem solve, which can be good. I don't mind that. So now all we're going to do here is we're just going to come in. I'm just going to put this here and we're just going to drag this in. So now we're just going to pass this. Is the under drag true or false? Is it the equipment slot? Okay. And that's all we have to do for that. So now we come back into our AC inventory component on drag drop. You can see we have this in here, and let's compile this just to make sure. All right. So now we can come in here and we don't need that is equipment there. All right. So is it the same item? Then I don't think that really matters if they are the same item. Let me see. Are they the same item type? So the sword on the sword, yeah, we could probably run that. I don't think that's going to really matter. I think it's here on the false might be the only place that we actually have to check for the equipment, because again, it doesn't matter if you're dropping a sword on top of a sword, a helmet on top of a helmet. Up here, you will, like I said, if you're creating your inventory in this or your user interface in the way that you probably should, and that's to have a single slot for your helmet, a single slot for your sword, then you'll have to do a little bit of extra work, and we can kind of talk a little bit something right there, you know, for to help you work through that if we got time at the end of this. Thanks, Bishop. If you're still here, I saw the notification come across from Buy Me a Coffee, and I appreciate that. I didn't see if there was a donation, but I saw a message either way. Thank you. I appreciate that. Look forward to getting caught up with you as well. So the then you'll need to do some checks in here. Like I said, at the end of this, if there's some time, we're 2 hours in. I want to try to get through this a little bit before it gets too much later, because I'm going to have to go cook some dinner for the family in a little bit. And then plus my voice isn't used to talking this much. So good night. Thanks, Bishop. And but for now, the way I have this set up, I don't care which slot it goes into. I'm just going to go through. So if it's the same item, if it's already in here, sword, if something's already in my inventory, then chances are likely it's supposed to be there. Okay. And the only way it's going to get in there, if there's nothing there, this is going to run true unless there's already something in the equipment inventory. It's going to come when they're not the same, meaning one is empty or it's different. So what that means, so if it's an empty slot, now we'll check to see the equipment stuff in here. Okay, so let me just drag these and bring these down. Okay, so on false, let's check let's go get is equipment. This comes off of, remember, is equipment. That's right here. That's what we're pulling off of here. Just saves us having to drag a wire all the way out here. I like that Unreal did that. So now we have this. So is it equipment? And just so I know, I'm going to go, is this equipment slot, right? That's what we're checking here. We don't want to check if the items are equipment yet. We're checking, is this an equipment slot? Okay. In other words, does the slot belong to the equipment window, right? That's what we're checking here. So is this equipment, actually, let's just name this window or widget. Widget, yeah, whatever you want to do for you. So, all right, so is this an equipment widget? So yes, what we're trying to drop onto belongs to the equipment widget. So what do we want to do at that point? We want to make sure that what we have, the drag slot, remember, this is the drag slot, what we're dragging around. Hey, Marky? Is that how I would pronounce your name, bud? A lot of numbers in there, but I would think it kind of looks like Marky, maybe. Thanks for joining. So drag slot here. So we've got this. So we need to check to make sure that this is of type equipment that we want. So let's go get a break. We want to break this out. Is that how you pronounce your name, bud? That I just saw another comment come across. Sorry. Yeah, so now we got the item. Let's get Monkey. We're name indeed. Okay, Monkey. No, that's good. All right, I see that. I was close. Marky, Monkey. All right, so let's go get defaults, get class defaults. And then from here, let's grab our equipment type and let's go not equal to none. Okay. So this is kind of long-winded. You can create separate functions for all this. You probably should. This, you know, I'm just kind of throwing it out here. So hopefully, Aaron, you can see all this. We're taking the under drag slot, breaking it out. And actually, no, we're not doing any of that. Sorry. The drag slot, we're breaking it out, getting its class defaults. Okay. And then we're getting the enum type. And let's hide unconnected pins. And we're just checking, is it not equal to none? In other words, it is equipment. So if this is equipment, then this should also be true. Or we can actually probably just go and. So these two conditions. Let's see. If it is equipment, sometimes you can't run an and. I mean, both these conditions kind of have to be true, but I can't run this here. We still have to check this up here. So is it equipment? Yes. Let's run another branch up here because there are separate things we have to do with this. If it is not what we're dragging around, if it is not equipment. So if it's not equal to none, meaning true, it is equipment. So the reason why I did that is because now I can type in here because my comments, I like to make them as the branch comments I like to make as questions. So is the dragged item also equipment? So by doing this, if it's not equal to none, then yes, true. So answering this question, is the dragged item also equipment? True. So then I know if I ask this question, true or false, right? So that's how I try to comment my branches. I would suggest probably doing the same thing for yourself. So we've got that. So now if they are the same, okay, so our dragged item is, then we just want to process everything, right? So let's just go true. And if it's not, let's just see what happens. I'm just going to, I know we're going to have to do stuff. I'm just going to take a return node and put it up here, right? So now dropping items that are equipment, that should work. So let's go ahead and I say should very lightly here. So let's go test this out now. Hopefully you got that, Aaron. We didn't do too much there. Compile it. Let's go ahead and play. Come in here, open this up. So now if I take this and drop it here, it doesn't work because, well, I emptied that out. But if I take this and drop that there, it still didn't work. Okay. So I messed something up here. So let's go. Okay. That's what it was. So let's try that again. Let's hit play because I didn't have an item. I forgot. This is the sword over here. Let's pick that up. So now if I take this and put it up here, there we go. It drops it on there. And now we didn't do anything because we haven't handled that case yet. Okay. But that does work. So you can see if I pick both these up because we haven't handled the case yet. If I try to drop bread in here, it just disappears. We're going to have to add that back in. But if I take the sword and drop it, then cool. And I can move it within the equipment. I can't take it and drop it back because we haven't handled that situation yet. So, all right, so good, that works. So now all this code is relevant to equipment. So if it's false or it's true, let's see, is the equipment widget. But if it's not, then what we need to do is, I think all we need to do is, I think I could probably just plug into one of these or do a copy of it. Let's just plug into one of these and test it out. So if we come up here now, let's get rid of that. So it is an equipment window, but it is not an equipment item that we're dragging around. So we're dragging bread and we're trying to drop it into the equipment. So what do we do at that point? So I think we can, let's just try this. I don't think this is going to work, but I'm going to see what the results are of this if we plug this in right here. We're just going to have to take a subset. Ultimately, we just need to take the item and put it back into its original spot. Okay, so, which isn't a big deal if we can recode that. So let's just hit play. I want to see if I can try to reuse some of this code. So if I take this and this, okay, again, this I can take, drop in here, and this isn't, so now it still dropped it in there. Okay, so that didn't work. So false, it's still coming in here, doing that. Let's delete that. So what do we need to do? We need to take the dragged item, location, and we need to put it back into, let's see. So the drag slot, we're not doing that. We need to, the drag slot item, setting the member of that. Should, let me see like this. Let me go Control D. Then if I go this, Control D. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm just taking the drag slot now. I'm getting the item just like we've done in everything else in here. And I'm setting the struct. Okay, but now since we're just going to take this and shoot it back to the original slot, we need the drag slot information, and we're just going to drop the item and quantity in there. So now if I take the false branch, okay, and again, just kind of making this dirty here, and then I need these two update events and the control, the return node. I'm just going to copy it in here. That way we update our inventory when it's done. There we go. Okay, so this, all right, this theoretically should work, I think, if I handled it properly. Let's compile it and hit play. So now we should be able to take the sword and move it back into our inventory. No, or this, I'm sorry, go like this. There we go. So we take this, and we try to put it in our equipment slot, and it just sends it back to where it belongs. So we go like that. So let me see, a partial stack. Let me send this over. There we go. So I messed up there. So we'll have to handle is partial stack. Okay. So if it is a partial stack that we're trying to send over there, because now we lost the extra bread items. Okay. So we come over here and we do that. It sends it back into one. Okay. So we'll have to handle that as well. But hopefully you can kind of see the logic of what's going on here, right? So we really didn't do too much to dictate the equipment here, right? So I know we're a couple hours in, but really this hasn't been that complex. So if this is not equipment, then we just need to run this. Into there as well. I think that should do. Let me try that again. So before I couldn't take the sword out of here and I wasn't able to put it back, but now we go like that and now we can put it back. There we go. Okay, so now that works. Okay, so our sword can come to and from our equipment. Our bread cannot go, but like I said, we need to handle this. We can take 3, put it in here, and it returns 3. But if I hold shift and take 2, actually, I don't want to do that. Let's take just 1. Hold control. I'm taking 1 bread, putting it over here. Instead of adding it back in, it's just resetting it to 1. So we don't necessarily want to do that. We just want to take the 2 items and combine them together. So let's see. Probably update. No, we don't want to update quantity. We want to take. Okay, so down here. So then what we would need to do in order to do that, we don't have to check if it's a partial stack or not. We just need to add it back in. So instead of setting this, let's go. We broke this. Go quantity. Let's go plus. I don't think this will break it. It might in further testing. So just keep that in mind. Plus, and then send it back into there. And there we go. So that should now work. So if I go play again, let's try that test again. So we take 1 bread. So now it should take this and put it back to 3. And it didn't. Puts it into 1. It did it into 2. But it didn't do 3. So I don't know why it didn't do 3. That is kind of odd. I don't know why I didn't do that. Let's try that again. Because it was working on 2. So if it worked on 2, it should technically work on 3. Tab. That is really kind of odd. Let's go. Now I'm curious. I'm going to get into the weeds here. Sorry. Print. What is the outcome of this edition? Oh, I know why. I think I know why. So let's see. So update quantity. This is only working on the under drag, not the over drag. So can't use that function. All right. So any questions thus far? While I try to work this out, I'll answer some of your thoughts. Let's see. I don't know why. If you can figure out why this isn't adding up to 3, this should. Oh. I know why. Okay, because the drag slot quantity is, so I was dragging around 1 item and then it was just adding it back into itself. So 1 plus 1 is always going to be 1 plus 1. So because I'm only well, not always. If I push control, this will actually be 4 now, I think. If I do shift, 2 plus 2 is 4. And even though it can only stack to 3, it's going to do the same thing. If I shift, 2 plus 2 is always going to be 4. If I shift 1, 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay, so that's what it's doing there. So I need the original amount, not the current amount that I'm dropping around or dragging around. So drag slot. Okay, so let me see the drag slot. Let me see. Okay, so let's go. Probably collapse this to a function. I think we just need this. So if I come down here now and go Control D, plug this in. So if I come in here, get rid of this print string, plug it back in, false. Okay. So instead of this add, so we need to add the, okay. Let's see, update quantity, set members. Okay, so if we just do this, oops, on drag drop, so we could probably eliminate that. So right now, if I take this, plug that straight into update quantity, we want to take this, we want to do add. So, oops, let's go plus, delete the subtraction, plus this, the new quantity, passing in the drag slot. Okay, so what this code is going to do is now if I can actually delete, I think, all this here. Before I do that, let's make sure. I'm just going to disconnect it. I'm going to save it just in case, because we know that semi worked for what we were doing. Take this, plug this in here. So all we're doing is we're taking the slot drag, we're getting its actual item quantity because we updated at the very beginning, and then we're just going to add it back into what we're dragging around. Okay, so item location. Yep. So this should work because this is taking the quantity from what we're dragging around and then adding it back to what the original inventory says. Okay. So, and then it's going to set the members in here. That's all that does. So now that should, and then we're going to update the inventory. So that should work now. So if I take this and I hold 1 down, this should now become 3 again. There we go. And just to make sure, tab out. So if I hold shift down, 2 plus 1 is 3. Okay, so that worked. We didn't get any error with that. So this is, let's add a comment, dragging, oops, dragging non-equipment items over equipment window. Okay. So there's that. So now, what are the other codes? I'm going to go ahead and delete this because we don't need that now. Okay, so there we go. That case is now handled. Right? So what else isn't handled here? So if we go Is that it? We can take the sword item. We put it on there. We take 3, drag it there. 3 goes back. We can take this. We can move it back. And if I come over here to, to this, I can still take this and put that over there. Not that there. But that can go there. There we go. That's it. Actually, that's it. That fixes it. So now you have an equipment window that only accepts items that are of equipment. And that's really all it takes. What did we do? Let's kind of review a little bit of what we did to adapt my system. Now, again, this is ugly, but all we had to do really to this whole function was add this, right? And this little bit right here. So that's all we had to do. Pretty simple stuff. Okay. This can go, yep. Goes into there. Let me clean this up a little bit because I'm OCD, even though all this code is going to end up being deleted. Maybe I will make this available just kind of as a quick down. Not only will it have the VOD, but if you are the appropriate level Patreon, if you want to come in, maybe I will just save this. I'll clean it up just a little. I won't refactor it, but I'll clean it up with some comments and I'll provide it as a download for my Patreons and come in here and just kind of take it, even though, you know, I hate for this just to kind of to do this work and have it just go away, but, you know, I don't really need it at this point. So, there we go. Got that. That's there. And we could probably move this up even more. Or not. It doesn't really matter. There we go. Got that. I'm just OCD with things like that sometimes. So, William, hey, I just started your inventory system like 10 minutes ago and saw you were live. Looks good so far. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. Hey, thanks, David. I appreciate that. Yeah, when you get through, come join the Discord. Come over, you know, and I try to pay attention to that. My hours have changed at work a little bit. That's why the videos have kind of gone down a little bit. But my buddy calls himself Weird One. He's over there. He's one of my mods. He's super, super helpful, man. I owe that dude a ton. And but he helps out a lot. And the rest of the community does. Soul does. You know, there, a lot of us are in there still kind of helping out. We got Soul Roll. A couple of the others are really just in there, and we're just helping each other out, man. So yeah, just come on in. You got any questions? If I don't answer you right away, you know, I'm probably at work or something, but when I get my breaks, if I can, I try to answer questions and let me know, you know, if you got any questions with the system going through. I just try to provide a different way of getting through it. And I'll read that in just a second, Aaron. Yeah, check it out. And yeah, I just try to provide something a little bit different, a little different perspective on doing a little different from the ordinary, because I think this can be a pretty robust system. You know, data assets are probably really the best way to go, but I think this is just equally as good, almost as flexible. Data assets are, when it comes to using functions, are probably a little bit more flexible than this, but yeah, I think it's a pretty decent system. So yeah, just let me know if you have any questions. All right, Aaron, just curious, where would you place these special powers or something like that once you place in the equipment window? I'm new to this part, just wondering. I'm just curious, where would you place the special powers or something like that once you place in the equipment window? So all you would have to do, okay, so another way to do this too, if you didn't, again, it depends on how you design your UI, okay? So in our previous discussions, if I come over here to the designer, right, you'd probably want, like, traditionally what you see in equipment systems is you see one slot here for the head, one slot here for the torso, and then only you could drag onto those slots. Okay. One of the things you can do, and you just have to be consistent with anything with your code, it's about consistency. So for example, you can make sure, right, in here, we know our, let's go back to the player here, where we put the equipment inventory on, we set this to a capacity of 5. So there will only ever be 5 inventory slots in here. Now, can you change this at runtime? Sure, you could. But when it comes to equipment now in our primary inventory, we will do that when we pick up a backpack or a duffel bag that has a different storage capacity. Then we're going to do that. We're going to expand at runtime the size of our inventory. But for your equipment, right, you don't have two chests. You don't have two, well, you've got 2 feet, but you don't have 2 pairs of feet. You don't have 2 pairs of legs. You don't have 2 heads, right? So, well, you might have 2 heads, right? If you're, depends on your game, I guess, and you'll just have to figure that out for yourself. But generally speaking, when you set your capacity here for your equipment, that should never change. Okay. So what I mean by that, you're right. You could have 2 chests, right? I don't know. If you do, I suggest going and seeing a doctor. That you might want to get that looked into, or, you know, go make some money off that stuff. You know what I'm talking about? All right. So, but that should most likely never change. So where I'm going with that is the capacity. So if you right off the bat, you go index 0 is always going to be my head. Index 1 is always going to be my torso. Index 2 is always going to be my legs. Index 3 is always going to be my feet. And index 4 is always going to be my hand, my weapon or tool, whatever's in my hand. If you follow that, then what you would do, you know, and you just have to do that when you're putting stuff, when you pick stuff up, when you interact with it here. So what I would do in that case, if you're going to do that, something here with the world item, right? This is what we used to have items in the world. Everything that we have here is the world item. All we do is set the information here of what type of item it is, right? So that's all we change. It's all this world item. So there's only ever the world item in the world that you can at least interact with, right? You'll have other things, but generally speaking, this is going to be the majority of everything. So when we interact with it here, what we can do is you can run a check. So interacting right now, we're doing this because you're picking up the world item. That's really all this is for. We're processing the item. That's the interact of the world item. That's how it interacts. Okay. So, and that's part of the interface call, right? Because you can interact with other items that aren't picking it up, but the world item, its interact will always be to pick it up. Okay, so what you can do in here is now you can run your checks. Is we got the inventory component. Is this is equipment? Oops, I hit the wrong button. Is equipment. Right? So we get is equipment. So if this is true, then we want to check what type of equipment. Is it a head? If it is, then we put it into, we process it differently. We put it into a different, right? You might want to go into your inventory component instead of process item in here, which just processes every generic item. You can come in here and do a separate call or make a separate function for process equipment. Right. And then in process equipment, you bring it in, you check, is it the head? Yes, it's the head. So it goes into index 0. Is it feet? Then it goes into index 3. Is it a weapon or a tool? Then it goes into index 4. And if you're just consistent with that and you push that through, then what you do now is whenever you get damaged, right? Let's say, an orc attacks you, right? So you're walking through the world and the orc comes up and attacks you. You're going to run a damage call. Okay. So when you do your damage calculation, you're going to do your entire calculation in there, and then you pull all your different equipment items from your equipment slot, and then you apply whatever values in there to help minimize your damage, right? So that's where the what you called power, that's where that comes from, right? So you just take now in your player, right, when you're applying damage, let's come down here in some space, go apply damage, not apply damage. Let's go. I guess we do have to do apply damage. So let's just go custom event. Okay, so we got this custom event called damage. So when we get attacked, it's going to call this event damage. We want to go apply damage. Okay, so now we need to decide. So an orc hits at 10, right? So let's say he hits at 10, but we're going to come in here. We're going to get our equipment inventory. we can really loop through all of this. You can do each individual piece, but you can do like a for each. Actually, we can't. We got to get the item. Get item. And now you can get each individual piece, or you can go like for each loop. And then during this loop, we can pull off of the element. And even though all we've got break, right? So you come in here and you're going to want to run functions. I'm just doing this and go get defaults. So in our defaults, only one we created new to this was oh man, so is item. Okay, so this is item is a BP class. So we would actually, so you'll have to run like interfaces or something to prevent having to do this. But if I went cast to weapon or equipment class. So now off of here, you don't want to cast this, but now off of here, remember we've got the durability or get defaults. So the defaults of the equipment is durability, right? Now, if we had damage or whatever it took, right? So you just get that. So in your equipment window, you just quit, you know, like if you do use, right? We created a function on the BP base item called use. So how do you use your equipment? Well, when it comes with regards to like your chest plate, right? Your using of that is to absorb damage. So what do you do in the use? Well, you apply whatever damage you want to it or remove some durability from it, however you want to do it, right? So, but that's generally, I'm just on a very high overview of this, Aaron. So let's see. So like for a buff using a chest armor, you would transfer that data through the interact, whether it would end with your character or the opponent. So like for buff using a chest armor. Well, usually by a buff, I'm thinking of making something stronger, but the purpose of an armor of like a chest plate isn't to make you stronger, it's to make you take less damage, right? So your chest plate doesn't do anything, generally speaking, more for you. So like a buff for like a sword would be like if you had, maybe, I don't know if you're talking magic or something, I guess you could do magic like on a chest plate, but generally speaking, your armor is just there to absorb damage. So for me, when if I'm doing something like that where I've got the potential to be damaged, I'm doing that calculation here, and whatever my calculation is goes into my base damage. Okay. And I'm going to apply damage to myself. So that's what I'm doing. Okay. So you just kind of, that's how I think of it. And then when it comes to inflicting damage, so now I've got an attack. Let me go custom event, and I'm going to call this one attack. So now when I attack somebody, I'm using something different here. I'm getting index 4 because that's the one I designated as my hand weapon, and I'm going to attack with getting index 4 from my equipment inventory, right? So now I go get index, or let's just go get item, get a copy, because we don't need a reference to it. We just need the information from it. So, and then we want to get index 4 because that's our hand item. So we get that from there, break it, and then just do whatever we need to from there, right? So we just we find the damage from that. We cast, or we send a interface call to the item to retrieve information from it. So that's how I would handle it, Aaron, is you just got to kind of think of it that way. Try not to always start with the easiest don't overcomplicate things. Everybody tends to do that. They have these grand scales. You go out and you play World of Warcraft and you're like, ooh, I want to do this and I want to do that. And you start thinking on the grand scale, well, I need to do this and I need to do that. Just sit there and think about the easiest way you possibly can do to accomplish something. And then once you accomplish that, just like I did with here, if we come back here, and I know you left me a couple comments there, I'll read those in a second, Aaron. But if you come back here to what we did in the AC component on drag drop, right? How did I do this here? I hooked in these branches, and then with each branch, I put in a print string, and I wanted to see what was going to happen. Okay, so then I came in here, and then with the true, I'm going to plug it into here and see what happens. Right? I took the least path of resistance, and then I saw, okay, that didn't happen. Why didn't that happen? I came over here. Oh, that didn't happen because I need to add these two things together to get it go back. Right? So just work one piece at a time and get through it. Don't try to build the entire system. Build small pieces of it and then build up to a more substantial system. So just run it back in your blueprint, like your character blueprint. Well, you'll be able to run it all back, right? So if I come back in here again, right, in an example of your armor, right? So we've got armor now in our equipment. That's all you got to do. Whatever damage system, damage is something totally different. I'm not going to get into damage now, right? But if you understand the concepts of applying damage and really it's just, even if you don't apply damage, you can subtract, this applied damage would actually be placed on the orc. He would apply damage to the character when he attacked you, and then he would send over his base damage of what he's going to cause. You say the orc can attack at 10, right? So if we were on the orc right now, he would apply damage to the character. So then you come here and you go damage, where is it? We should be able to right here. So we got call function, no, not call function, game damage. Where is it? I got to go around play. Oh, event any damage. So now on the player, if the orc comes over and he does 10 damage on you. Okay. So now we got the damage that comes across. So now from here, we take the damage and we minus whatever calculations, however you want to calculate the buffing or the effects of your armor is how you handle that calculation. But this is where you would do it, is when you get attacked, right? So you're receiving any damage. The orc applied damage to the player, get player character. So the orc, the damaged actor, is the player character. So now the player character, the true first person, this doesn't have to be the first true first person. This is just the player character, is applied damage, and that damage is 10 or whatever, however you calculate the damage of the orc, because he might have a sword or he might have a mace or whatever. So this damage is going to be different. I'm just hard coding at 10. And then, so the damaged actor, the player character, that's going to trigger this event, any damage. And then, so whatever we put in right here is this value right here. So now we calculate, do whatever calculations you got to do, run a function. I can't tell you how to do that for your game, right? All I can say is take this damage, do whatever calculations you don't, even if you don't know where all these items are in the particular index, you don't need to, right? You just run a for each loop, you get all of those, and you get there, you run an interface call so you don't have to cast to it to get damage resistance or whatever it is, whatever you want to call it. You get, you call get damage resistance interface call to your equipment item or list or whatever. You get that value, you run whatever calculations you can as a percentage or whatever. So 10 minus, your armor provides 5% total damage relief or buff. Then you subtract 10 minus 5%, right? And then that's your damage applied. Then you take this number and go minus, you take your health I don't have a health value here, but you take your health minus this damage, right? So that's how you do it. Now, when you attack, you create you'd actually have to create an attack button, like with anything else with the context menu up here, right? You create a input action for it, or context input for it, but just say this is a context input for it. So whenever you press your attack button, you come in here, you do a search of your inventory. If you don't know exactly where the index is, then you just say, you just loop through it until you find your hand slot, right? Which you can do we created that enum. So you just search for that, right? So that's ultimately all you have to do, right? I mean, that's kind of beyond what we were really talking about, because, really what this was about, trying to get us to create an inventory and use my inventory system to create, to incorporate it into an equipment system. So, and was actually, accomplished relatively quickly. Within a couple hours, we were able to do that. And that's with me blabbing away. Okay, good. I'm glad I answered that. So yeah, that's all you'd have to do that. So just one piece at a time, as long as you understand the damage system, you could just do it that way. Again, now that we're kind of at the end of this, it all works. If you want me to go back, I can open this up for some free commentary. We could talk for a little bit. What time, how long we've been live here? 2 hours, and about 2.5 hours is what I've been talking for. I can open this up for a little bit for some open commentary, kind of like what we just did, going above and beyond. But right now, if you got a question on what I did, if you need me to zoom in, go back on what we did here, that I can do that real fast before we get into any more open commentary. But otherwise, we'll just move into the open commentary. So any of you got any? You're welcome, Aaron. I appreciate it. I hope you got it. And like I said, this isn't a VOD. So if, you want to go in and replay that, then, by all means go in and check that. So awesome. Thanks, Bishop. If you come back and watch us, I just went over and looked at Buy Me Coffee. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. All right. So there's that. I don't want to use that. Okay. So Aaron or anybody else that may or may not be there, you got any questions on how I did this? If you're just joining the chat, then go back and watch the VOD, but ask me any other question, even if it doesn't relate to this, as long as it has to do with my project, or, something relatively simple to answer, I guess. I'll dictate if it's simple or not. If you got anything, let me know. You said this gets auto uploaded. No, yes, to the VOD should automatically, as soon as I'm done, it should start updating it. It may be available right away, but it'll only be in standard def. And then it will, it'll take time to process the high def, but it should be available, I think, completely. Depending on how long the VOD is, HD may not be available for an hour or so, but it should be available within, I would think, probably 15 minutes. It should be, because I think it's recording on their server, and then as soon as I'm done, it'll just finalize it and then start processing HD. So I think that's how it works. So it should be available almost right away. Dim, welcome to the channel, and you are welcome. Hopefully I provided some assistance to you. If you got any questions as it relates to this or whatever, we're kind of open time right now, so I can answer anything you got. If anything I've done on my channel, or if you're just stuck in your project, you got me on a, virtually on a one-to-one, I guess, even though it's not quite one-to-one, but I'm here for you. Let me know. Take a drink of my soda. Oh yeah, what are you doing? Aaron, you need me to scroll back through any of this? Get close? I could probably do that here at the end, so at least it's in the VOD, huh? Well, I wait to see if you guys have any questions. So I'll just kind of, I guess I'll run back and and go into what we've done here. So back into the primary HUD, right? All I did was I made a duplicate of the inventory window, and yeah, so I just made a duplicate of the inventory window, and I just dropped that in here. It's the same thing we've been doing in here. If you do something different, you're gonna, in your own project, you're gonna have to handle it different. I suggest you doing it, you do it a different way. But however you handle it, you know, maybe one day I'll go in and because I may end up doing an equipment system for my project. It's just not what's up next. So, or in the foreseeable future, but, however you do it, just handle it yourself. But for me, I just, in this example, I did the equipment here. Okay. And make sure it's available. I created this separately, dropped it in here, and then go to the graph. And in the graph, what we did here, this was is hotbar in the update inventory function. It was is hotbar. But just for this example, I got rid of it and did is equipment. You could have did is hotbar or is equipment, then run up here to true, and then separate out hotbar this way and equipment this way in a branch, however you want to do that. But because you're probably going to want a hotbar too. I went over in the in a pinned comment over in the Discord. If you haven't seen it, I did go over how to easily adapt a hotbar system, which is generally the same way as what I did here. It actually takes a little bit less work if you're doing a hotbar, unless you want to regulate what goes into your hotbar. But if a hotbar can have any item in general, then it's not going to be handled any different, really. It just comes down to a new user interface, a new user widget. Okay. But so I would suggest however you do it. I just did this. I changed this from in the update inventory from is hotbar to is equipment. Now this is equipment. Remember, we added on the AC inventory component. We added that Boolean here. You can see there is the value variable is hotbar. Put it into is equipment there. So that's where that comes from. So back into the primary HUD. So then it just runs through, and then really this is going to be the same as what we were doing all along, right? All we're doing is we need to, the reason why we separate this here is so we can grab the appropriate window, just like down here. Even though we don't separate it by a variable here, there's only your primary inventory and your secondary inventory window that we have. I mean, if you have multiple windows in, then maybe it'll be a little bit different, but we got our primary and we got our secondary. So all we're doing is we're checking here which one it belongs to. Our secondary, the inventory is going to belong to the storage unit. So all we're doing in here is checking. So generally it's the same thing, but all we're doing is we're coming up here, we're clearing the children of the box that stores our slots, and then we're going through every item in the inventory, which is the inventory that we're passing in. And then we're setting those values, just like we did down here, into the slot. The one thing we did do for the slot that'll help us out, and we'll go in there, is we created a variable called owning widget. So in our WBP inventory slot, I came in here, created the new variable called owning widget, and I made it of type equipment window, right? So that we created here, right? I told you this was just a duplicate of the other inventory window I had. I put the word equipment up there so I could see the difference in the screen. Okay. So then from there, I take the equipment window, which is this, and I pass it in here into the equipment slot. Down here on the bottom, we leave it blank. So that way it's a null pointer. So we could check, because where we check this at, we're going to check, is it null or is it valid rather, which checks to see if it's null or not. So that's why we put that there. That's how we easily tell if what we're working with is the inventory equipment window. Okay. And then we just take all of our new slots and it loops over until it fills up all of our capacity within that window. Okay. So we got that. The primary HUD is done. And then from the primary HUD, we come over here into, once we update the inventory. So we come in here, let's pick up the item now. So if we come over here to the blueprint, true first person character, first, when we open up the inventory, We just added that in here to mine. Of course, yours may end up being different if you have, but this is just if you're following my tutorial exactly. We come in here to opening the inventory. We open up the primary inventory first, update the inventory HUD from there. Then we take the equipment inventory, which is just the second inventory component we added here. Remember, we changed this capacity to 5. I came up with the 5 capacity because we have the head equipment, chest equipment, leg equipment, foot equipment, and then your hand equipment, which is your sword or tool or whatever you might put in your hand, right? So there's 5. So the capacity for your equipment is 5. That's what I did in mine. If you want the player character to have more or less, then have it there. This value should never change at runtime unless you have some sort of buff that allows somebody to maybe dual wield. Maybe you can dual wield swords or something like that. So then you would have to put 6 there, and you have to keep track of left hand and right hand. Okay, but that's what I did. So a capacity of 5, and that's how I came up with that value. And then we take that inventory component, and then we update its inventory component as well. Then we show player inventory. So what do we do when we show player inventory? Back into our primary HUD, show player inventory. All I did was I took the equipment window because I want this to open every time that I open up my normal inventory, which you probably will too, but it'll probably look different if you're doing a better UI than I had here. But we're just setting that visible, and it toggles. We use this to toggle visibility just like we did with our normal inventory. I grabbed a new soda, but I didn't take a drink. Let me do that. My voice is getting a little hoarse. Okay, so that's what we did there with the show player inventory. We just added this. That's all we added to that. Okay, and then with that, back in here, it shows the player inventory. So now the window comes open and closes every time we press the tab key. All right. From there, now we have to be able to pick up the item. Okay, so where that comes from is the interact. So in the world item, we've got interact. It comes in here, and actually we didn't even have to end up running into here is interact. This was just an example. If you want to put into individual slots, then you come in here into interact and you work with this here. That's why I kind of ran that here, but we don't need that here. So we pick up the item. So when we pick up the item, it processes it, comes through here and adds everything. So right now, nothing goes directly into your equipment slot when you pick it up from the ground. It goes into your regular slot. So even if your inventory is full and you try to pick up a chest plate, even if there's space in your equipment inventory, it's not going to automatically put it into your equipment slot. You have to physically, the way it's set up now, it's something you can do in your own project if you want to. That's beyond the scope of this video or this stream. But generally speaking, you pick something up, it's always going to get processed and put into your regular inventory, and then you must drag and drop it and put it into your equipment inventory if that's what you want to do. But everything comes that way. So we didn't have to do anything with our processing, right? So your world item, it just gets interacted, does exactly what it normally does. So now we have to handle, it goes into our inventory. So the primary functionality that we had to do, so each slot is set to a certain equipment like helm or sword, you process item. This interact here, this process and all this interact, this is on the world item. This is what happens when you pick an item up into the world. Okay. So don't think of it that way. You don't want to interact. If you want this to automatically go, if you pick up, but you run into a problem, you're going to give yourself probably a bigger headache that way. I mean, if it's something you really have to have in your game or a feature you really want, you're going to run down a rabbit hole with that, because you have to think now, if you pick up an item, you got to check to see, is it equipment? Okay. Yes, it's equipment. What type of equipment is it? Do you already have equipment in your inventory, or in your equipment inventory? Do you already have a helmet on? You're picking up a helmet. Do you want to switch it out? What do you want to do with your old helmet? What if one's not better than the other, right? So there's a bunch of things you're going to have to run into if you do it that way, right? So I'm just kind of walking through the logical step. We didn't do anything with the process item here, right? I'm just talking about, so when we pick up an item, it's going to go into your regular inventory, whether it's a helmet or anything like that. For me personally, I would keep it that way. like 5 slots, which you have. Do you have to specify? What do you mean? Do you have to specify each of those slots? What are you talking about? Separate them where? What are you talking? I don't get what you're asking. You mean when you're creating a new user interface? You just have to program for it. That's what I was saying. If you always put, if you pick right here, if you pick up and interact with an item, right? We had the is equipment here. If it is equipment, then you know you want to you just have to be consistent with what you do, right? There's no we're programming here, so you have to define what you want to do, right? You have to define what you do. So if you write down if you write down and you know for a fact going through all your code from here to eternity that you're building the game, that you want slot 0, index 0 of your equipment inventory, if you treat it the same, it's up to you, right? It's how you do it. So if you treat every index 0 is going to be your helmet, index 1 is going to be chest, index 2, then it's easier to find. You go, hey, I'm putting on a helmet, go into index 1 of my equipment inventory. Just go there. If there's another item, take that off and drop it into the world or put it into your regular item, right? So it's just about how you treat it, right? As far as the UI goes, let's wait. Let me finish my walkthrough and we could talk the extra stuff. If you're trying to have me help you design a UI for it, let's wait for that. Let's just go over the things that I've done today because I'm trying to create a nice, simple walkthrough at this point. So when you rewatch the VOD, you can go, this is the steps we took. Okay. So let's stick with that. Let's go back here to the, no, you're good. You're okay. I get distracted pretty easily as well. So let's just finish this up though, because we're pretty close to there. So after we pick up the item, it goes straight into your regular inventory, assuming you got space. If you don't have space, it's just going to spit it out. Okay. So then in our inventory, most of the functionality comes down to our dragging and dropping. Okay. Our drag and drop happens into our inventory slot. Okay. And in here, on set drag, right? This is on drag detected. We call it set drag. So in set drag, we come in here and we're passing the information along. Again, we didn't do anything in here, right? I'm just following this process. We go set drag. Well, set drag calls our slot drag operation. Okay, so we did do a little bit into here. What we did was we took our, first we make sure, like we did before, this was all standard. We had, is this valid? Is our under drag valid? Meaning, are we trying to drop onto another inventory slot? Okay. If we are, then the only thing we need to do here is we went into our on drag drop function in our inventory component and we created a new variable, or excuse me, not a new variable. Where is it? On drag drop. We created a new parameter, a new input parameter called is equipment. Okay, it's not, even though we got is equipment here, I don't think I need that. I think I could delete that. No, where is it? Let me see. Hold on a second. I can delete that. I don't need that. Let me go compile it. Oh, no. Okay, never mind. Never mind. Hold on a second here. Okay, this one, I think that might be confusing. So I'm going to change this to is equipment window. Okay, so that's what we're checking here. Okay, so is equipment window. We're going to come back here now. I'll finish that up in just a second. Is equipment window. So we got this. So we're checking, is the under drag, the owning widget, is it valid? Right. We just went through and I showed you that. We processed that. We set this to be the inventory or the equipment window. If it is, if not, it's going to come up false. So then we come in here into the on drag drop. Okay. We have is equipment window. We didn't really change anything here. This is all the same. The true branch, that all stays the same. All right, so we come down here now and we've got, is this the equipment widget? So let's go, is equipment window. Okay, I think I might have accidentally been pulling off of here. It was working just fine, so maybe not, but let's separate them because these are two different unique things that we're checking here. So get equipment window, that gets plugged into here. So that's what it's asking here. We could probably name that is equipment widget because that's what we named here, but I'll change this to say window just to match. Okay, and again, right here, is it equipment window? If it is, that means we're trying to drag and drop an item into the equipment. So now we need to check, is it equipment? So we get the drag slot that we passed in, and then our new enum that we had created. Remember, we created a bunch of new items. Let me show you here. So in our items, inventory items, we created the equipment. So we created equipment parent right there, right? And this is a child of the BP base item, right? And then we created all these other ones as children of equipment: axe, weapon, feet, head, leggings, tool, torso. They're all children of equipment. We got weapons in here. So we got BP weapon, which is a child of equipment. And then this is a child of weapon, right? So you create your parent-child hierarchy. And then in here, with this, we created the enum. Let me open up the enum. Do I still have it open? I don't think I do. So we created this enum of the different types. So none is the most important one. Keep it as none. Every item will have this by default, none. And then head, hand, head, torso, legging, feet. Okay. And then on BP world item, we added BP, oh, that's a world item. BP base item, we added that variable equipment type with the variable E, the enumeration equipment type, and have it automatically default to none. So every child of this, even the equipment, will be defaulted to none. So then that's when you come in here to your equipment, come back in here to your items, equipment. You've got your equipment parent, which is a sub parent of your BP base item. We opened that up and then we added that variable here. This is still none. You can change this if you want, but I left this as none. So now we can come into your separate ones. So like a sword goes into hand, or even weapon. I think we changed this as default to weapon class defaults. Nope, we didn't. Weapons could really go into hand as well. So we can set this as default hand from the weapon, because all weapons are going to go into your hand depending on the type of game you're going. I mean, you could have a chest plate weapon, whatever, however you want to do it for you. I'm picturing kind of medieval or fantasy kind of style. So that's my vision when I'm doing this. So you could set that to hand, and then this, this will default to hand. So compile this, and there we go. It defaults to hand. Okay. So with that, so we set that variable here. When you create a helmet, then you'll change this to be helmet or head, and then you got your torso, plate, your legs, and your feet, however you want to do it. Okay, but we have that, so set that for every item that you're going to do. Back in the inventory component, so now we're checking, is it not equal to none? Well, the only things that should be none, or the only things that should not be none, are equipment items. So we're just checking, is the dragged item also equipment? So we're dragging onto the equipment slot, double checking, is the item we're dragging also equipment, meaning we're trying to drop it down onto the equipment slot. And if it's true, then this is just the things we've done. We didn't do any of this code. This is pre-existing code to my inventory system. We did nothing there. Okay, all we did was we plugged directly into the is partial stack. That's all we did. Okay, so now the other branch, the only extra code we added in here was, so we are trying to drop something onto the inventory window, but it's not equipment, or not inventory, the equipment window, and it's not equipment. So we're trying to drag bread into our equipment. So if that's false, then we come down here, and all we have to do is we have to take the item that we're dragging. We had this update quantity function that we built in one of the previous episodes. I think it was our last episode. We have that. And instead of subtracting, because all this is at the very beginning here, this is the code we built here for coming in. I just took and copied this and brought it down here for this function. So I'm really didn't even build anything new for this, right? I added a couple Boolean checks. I drag and dropped that in here. That's that exact code with the exception of instead of minus, it's plus. That's it. It's that exact same code with that being the only difference. And then we have to update our inventory. So I just came up here and Control-D this and put it down there and plugged it in. That's it. I did nothing extra for this. This is how simple it is to adapt this. All you have to do is just, think about exactly what you need and then make the appropriate checks. And then in here, just to make sure, is equipment window? No, it's not the equipment window. Then we don't care what we do with it. Do just like it normally did. So we take this and plug this straight back into that branch. So technically with this, let me think. Yeah, no. So I was thinking if we can combine this, but we can't. So, and then that's it. Like I said, we really didn't build anything spectacular with this. It was just as far as our inventory window goes, it was just copy and paste. As far as the blueprints go, or the objects, they're not even blueprints. They're just the objects for the equipment and the weapons. Those are all just children of the BP base item. So, that's all we did to get through here, and it works. So, hopefully I kind of demystified some of that. It probably took me just as long to explain all that as it did to actually build it. So yeah, we're 2 or 3 hours into this. So now, if you understand all that, walk through it. I don't think I missed anything. We got the equipment. We got that. I don't think I missed anything. I think I went through and I got it all covered. So that way, when you're watching the VOD, you can watch that section alone. So, all right. So now I open the floor to any extra add-on questions. I may or may not program it as we go into here, but I can try to walk through it. So if you got anything extra, feel free. No, actually, I've been kind of tired. I've been playing a game, and actually, the game I'm playing right now, I've only been playing it like the last couple days on the weekend. I'm telling you, I don't even come home. I don't even have the energy to play games, let alone try to record when I get off at work. But it's Bum Simulator. It was also made in the Unreal Engine. It's a brand new one. There's a couple hobo type games, bum games out there. This is a new one. It's called Bum Simulator. It dropped like last week. I watched I watched a live stream from the I don't know if you've heard of the live streamer. His name's Raptor. He was playing it and it kind of got me a little interested, and it was on sale. It's brand new. Like I said, it was made in Unreal Engine 2, and it's kind of the way Raptor explained it, and it kind of goes along with it, because there's another hobo game out, and I can't remember what it's called, but that's like a little bit more realistic. I haven't played it yet, but that's more sim style of a game, and it's very, very in depth. Whereas in Bum Simulator, it's got building mechanics, it's got crafting, it's got a research tree, or a skill, not really research. It's got a skill tree in it. It's got a decent size open world map, and it's got an inventory system to it, and it's pretty cool. But the way he described it is, it's kind of like Bully. If you remember Bully, how it's got a lot to it, but it's more of just a fast, just kind of quick gameplay, and but it's pretty fun. But anyways, that got me kind of thinking with my game, because as I was building these videos with my inventory system, I was thinking more of like a not Rust, like a Mist. I was thinking more like Mist. Mist is also being made. He's a solo developer. I don't know if he's got anybody else working with him now, but he started that project as a solo dev in Unreal Engine, building Mist. This is fun. I haven't played it for a little while. There's been quite a few updates. I probably should play it and see how well he's progressed with it. But that's kind of on the path I was going. I was just kind of going in the open world. If you've talked with me about it all in Discord, then I was just kind of going an open world. You're out in the forest, and like whether it's zombie or aliens, I would probably go zombies just because I have assets for those. But that's just kind of how I was going. I kind of got a story in my head for that. But after playing this bum simulator, it's kind of, I almost want to kind of do a clone of that. That would be kind of fun. There's another one I was actually playing, but I couldn't do videos on it. I haven't played it for a little bit, but it's Drug Dealer Simulator. And that was made in Unreal Engine as well. And that's actually a really fun game. But if you've ever played it, there's a lot that they left on the table. They're actually making a second one right now. I think they've been making it for a while, and I'm hoping this is what Drug Dealer Simulator 1 should be. But I don't know yet. I haven't seen much about that. But I thought about recreating that because that is actually a decent amount of fun. There's some good mechanics to it, but there's a lot of repetitiveness in there that could be, done away with. So, but I can't really make content on that. YouTube would flag that. The new Jedi game. No, I haven't seen that yet. I think that was made in Unreal too. Yeah, I think I think they have been making it in Unreal as well. I think I did hear that. I have not seen the trailer on it yet though. But yeah, so I may try to go something a little bit more simple than the, just kind of go along that hobo theme and try to maybe do a recreation, nothing unique on my end for the videos and stuff. I'll say my uniqueness for the team project we're doing from the Discord channel, codename EVGA. We haven't really, Weird One started on it, and we've got a little bit of work on it, but with my lack of videos and my new job, it's been hard for me to do anything. So with them on that one, but that's something that we're working on as well. So, but I was thinking about, because I'm just at that stage now to where I could probably shift this, because I'd still need, really for my videos, I need to make a crafting system. Weird One's going to kill me when I say this, but I still haven't fully decided how I'm going to do the crafting system yet. I got to sit down and I really got to tinker with it, play with it. And then after crafting, I want to do a building system. And those things are also in that hobo simulator. So if you haven't seen anything on that, just watch some of it. It's actually kind of fun. I played that the last couple nights, right before bed, play a couple hours of it and go to bed. But it doesn't take too much brain. I was playing Raft. I like Raft. I wouldn't mind doing a remake of Raft, but that was made in Unreal Engine as well. But a lot of games these days are being made in Unreal Engine. I don't see why not. It's, especially with the new royalty policies of, not having to pay any royalties until you make $1 million. I mean, that's, a lot of incentive to use their product, because you know what, if I make $1 million, I don't mind giving them a royalty. Yes. Everything I'm trying to do, that's with my, whether it's my inventory system, my crafting system, I'm trying to make them, I don't know if it still is. It probably won't be right now, as far as my inventory system being, as you called it, self-contained, but modular is probably the more appropriate word, where I can take it. I did that, if you remember back one of my last couple of videos, when the bulk of my inventory system was done, I was able to show you by migrating it that the only things that went with it are the inventory system, the items and the inventory. Nothing was included, like the character, not even the widgets were part of it, right? That's the point of using all the interface calls. If you don't do a bunch of casting and other hard references, if you don't have variables that have hard references, like we created, here, this is a hard, well, not there, like we did on the inventory slot, right? We did this hard reference with the owning widget. So now if I try to migrate this, it's gonna force me to take that when I migrate it. And then when it forces me to take the equipment, it's gonna force me to take every other hard reference, right? So it's hard to do that. But that's one thing I did a couple episodes ago, was I showed you that everything I've done is extremely portable, and you don't have to take the character with you. You can move it into any game, and you could do like what we just did, and you can adapt it. So my goal would be, to answer your question, is with the crafting system to do the same thing. You create a component, maybe a couple components, and you just try to put everything self-contained, and you have it. It would be tough to be fully self-contained. I could do it while it would have to it would be contained in a way that I would still need access to the items, right? So right now, all the items I made, the BP world item, the BP base item, all that's, and even the BP sword I just created, that's all part of the item system. So that right now, the inventory system needs access to those to work, right? It has, you can't have an inventory system unless you have items. And the same thing goes with the crafting system. You have to have, in order to craft things, you have to have items to craft new items from. So I would still need the items there. However, the items are independent of the inventory system. So I could have the crafting system move into a new system without the inventory. That's my plan. And it would just take the items with it. So then you would just have to come up with some sort of way to store the items to be able to check against it, things like that. So yes, that would be my plan with the crafting, and even the building system is just, modularity, be able to go right click, come here to the inventory, because I put everything in this inventory system folder. Right click, sorry, hiccups, I got a little bit of gas, a little belch, and go to migrate. And then when you do this, we need to save all the selected. So now if you come in here, see now all these things, the new enumerator I created is tied to it. So take the enumerator. Best way to store all the millions of stuff. I'll go over that data table in just a second. So right now, if I try to migrate this, I'm getting the enum. So that's fine. The enum's tied to it because I had to create that to separate the equipment. So that's assuming I had equipment. I would need that with it. Interfaces. Yes, of course, we need the interfaces. Interfaces are great to help keep things modular. The inventory, these are all the things. So we need the items. They're all part of the inventory system. So everything within the items folder is going to go. So that's fine. We go like that. Starter content. These are the only starter content items I'm using. You can include that or not. So that's it. I can still, even after everything I've done with the whole inventory system, there's the widgets aren't part of this, right? I made it completely independent. So I can migrate this inventory system to a completely brand new project. All these are going to go over there. And then using the interfaces that I created here is how I tap into a new widget system, is how I interact with the player, whatever player character, because I may want to maybe this inventory system is going to go onto a spaceship. I can take this over there, put it on the spaceship, and then just utilize the interface functions that I created to interact with the new player character. It doesn't matter if the player character is organic matter or inorganic. It doesn't matter, whatever you put it on, right? So you just have to be able to interact with it. And that's what's great about interfaces, is as long as you have a reference to the object that inherits the interface. That's why we use the player character. We can get player character without ever casting to it. Going right click, player character. That's free. That's a free call. That's not like casting. That's a free call. Same thing with controller. Get player controller. That's a free call. Game mode. Get game mode. Free call. Game state. Free call, right? So you get these. So if you have interface, so if there's something in my game state I want, I go like this, and then I call, it doesn't even know if it has it or not. If I go, what is an interface that I have? We'll go interact message. So we send the message of interact to the game state. It doesn't, we pass in an inventory or we don't pass in an inventory. It doesn't matter, right? We pass in interact to it, and it's going to attempt to call this function on the game state. If it exists, then cool. If not, then it doesn't do anything in the game state because it doesn't exist. We don't get any error messages. You can check whether it succeeded or not. If we don't have this interface there, then it's just going to come back false. You can handle that if you want. But that's what's nice about it. So that's why I did interfaces with player on the player, was because we have a free call to it. We don't have to store the player reference, because if we stored the player reference in our inventory, then we would have to take this exact character. If I went in here and I made a variable of player and I put the hard reference to third person character, the third person character and everything else tied to it, including animations, including meshes and everything that's tied to the player character, would go along with the inventory. So that's a part of making it modular. And that's one thing I've been working on. You don't really care for now to go to the answers of where did I just put that at, by the way? Hold on a second. I just created, oh, there it is. Okay. Data tables are good, right? But the problem with something like this, excuse me, the problem with using a data table in this system, and originally before I started doing videos again, I was just working on inventory system, trying to sharpen my skills back up, and I did a system using a data table. The problem lies in, let's come back here to, we're just going to use food as an example. Okay. And I think I kind of went over this in my world object video when I talked about why using world objects is good. Okay. But we come back here. Let's just say food. Okay. So as a player character, you tell your character to eat food or whatever you do with your, there's a lot you could do with food, right? It can, at a bare minimum, it's going to provide me a different health advantage. It's going to restore a different amount of HP than bread will. Right. So that alone means I have to do 2 different checks. So if I go eat, now I have to switch on all what if I have 1,000 pieces of food? I have to do a switch. What if it's this food? Is it this food? No, it's not that food. It's this food. No, it's not that food. It's this food. And yes, you can run interface calls, but when you're running a data table, you have to look up that data table for that specific item. Right. So you just, it creates, it's super messy. Now you could incorporate, oh, it says my health stream is low. Hold on. Hopefully you're still getting me. It says there's an error with my stream. I hear myself, but I don't know if the quality is going to be any good. I heard myself in the stream replay. Anyways, so it just becomes a nightmare. And then when you want to call functions, because see, like right now in the food, when it flaked a little bit for me. Yeah, hopefully. Okay, there it goes. Now it says my stream health is healthy, but I don't know. I got a few things going on right now that probably, like, running the stream in the background probably doesn't help any. Yeah. So anyways, it's just, it becomes a logistical nightmare. So if you've got a ton of different items, because like right now with the food, we have the command or the function in BP base item, use item, right? So if we want to do different things with every item we use, right? And even if you don't think about food, you think about other usable items in your inventory, they're all going to be different. Well, you can't call functions on a data table, right? You can get the information. All data table is a collection of data, right? It's just it's a CSV. It's a comma separated value list. So it's just a spreadsheet. So you can get values from there. So if I want to know when I eat an apple, how much health do I restore? Well, I can call up a data table, find the row that says apple, and get that value from there. But what do I want to do when I use my wand or whatever, right? There's going to be different things that you want to do. A sword, when you use a sword, is going to act differently than a gun, right? So you want to use that. So you have to, when you want to use something, you have to run a switch then. Okay, what item am I using? It became super messy, right? At least here, data assets or the objects, the way I've done it here, you can call functions on it, right? You still kind of have to cast to it. It's called constructing it, which is a lighter version of casting. It's still, it's still a little bit tough, but this way you can still have each individual item at the expense of having all these extra objects where data table and you could use data tables using this system. You can still use the a data table, right? You can still incorporate a data table here. So in regards to like your equipment system, right? You do the like what we're doing here for equipment in your inventory. You do the objects for that, but to find out the different values of all your different equipment, you can run a data table. I mean, you don't really need to because you're creating a different object here, right? So even though I might have a BP sword, right? So this is my base sword, but I could really name this like I can have a dagger as well, or whatever. I can't think of different types of swords. You might have a I don't know, I'm drawing a blank right now. It's been too long of a stream, but it's either way, you're creating a separate object for it. So then you just come in here and you set the values for it. So right now, in this case, we only created durability, but you can create, this is your data table right here, except for now you don't have to look up against a data table. Easier to update a data table in in like Excel spreadsheet or something. Yes, you can. It is a little bit easier when the data table is small, but when you're getting hundreds or thousands of rows and columns in there, it's not going to be as easy as you think. In this case, as long as you got good organizational structure, you go, hey, my sword's a little too strong. I need to nerf my sword. You come in here into your items, equipment, weapons folder, my sword. You open up your sword, and then you come in here and you adjust it, right? Whereas in a data table, you have to scroll all the way through an entire list and find out the exact sword you're looking for. Hope you have the right one, and then you adjust it inside there. And so, for small tables, yeah, a table's easier. In a full scale game, when you got hundreds or thousands of different items, it's not going to be as easy as you might think it will be. And I think visually, because that's why we love Blueprint so much, is because it's visual scripting, is being able to see it like this laid out is much easier. And right here, even though I got durability here, I can come in here to equipment where we created this and give it a category and go weapon. So now when I come over here to the sword, I've got a separate, I can only the values as it relates to the weapon category I have available. So it removes all the extra clutter, right? So I don't have to go in here. Where's weapon? Where's weapon? Where's durability? Where's that? No, right here under weapon. So okay, so frost sword, fire. Yeah, that was my question. That's where you would place the values. Yeah. So yeah, that's where you do it. So in here, that's what I was saying with the parent child. So equipment is the generic type of thing. So the weapon, all your weapons now, so all your equipment has durability, right? Your chest plate, they're going to wear out over time, right? So in your equipment, you only put variables that are applicable to every type of equipment. What's applicable to every type of equipment is durability. Everything's going to wear out, or maybe you don't want your items to wear out. That's up to you. I'm just thinking, generally speaking, all my equipment in my mind is going to have some form of durability. So I put that there. And then any other one you can think of would go there, because when it comes to like your weapons, a weapon is going to have damage. Okay. So we come over here and we make this a float. So now when we compile this, we come over to sword and let's compile it here. And you're going to see damage is here. I didn't give it the category. I can come back in here into weapon and go category weapon. Did I spell that right? I don't think I did. Yep. So then I come over here, compile it. I come over here now again, back into the sword. There it is, damage and durability. And I can set damage independent here. So I can go, this sword is going to do 10 damage, but the frost sword is only going to do 5 damage. So you set those values here and they'll be independent of each other. So that's how you would do it in place of doing a data table. So you just have all your variables here and then you just call those variables. So that's where, like I said, with interfaces, right? These can all have interface calls or whatever. You just create a function here and you call get, get values or whatever. But, these are going to be defaulted. So anyways, AC damage, etc. That's where you would place the values. Okay. Yeah. So you just put them in here on whatever item you need. And then you just go through and find the item that you want to change, because that's the thing is, especially when you're talking a game of fighting of any style, is game balance. So you're constantly going to be game balancing. And like I said, spreadsheets are good for that. If you got an eye for spreadsheets, you could do that. You can filter your spreadsheets, but at the same time, you can filter in here as well. So it's not that big of a deal. They're just not as flexible as using objects or data assets. Anything else? What you got for me? We're at 3.5 hours in here now, so I'll answer any other questions you got. Otherwise, my throat's starting to get a little bit hoarse, so just let me know. Sounds like it's getting ready to thunder outside too. Is there a good way to manage a lot of items? Last question for me. Thanks a lot. Is there a good way to manage a lot of items? I mean, we're doing it, right? It's just about being organized. So you can have 1,000 items. Objects don't take up that much hard space, right? They don't take up that much disk space when you're making them. So I wouldn't worry about that, right? So it doesn't matter for data assets, anything like that. Either way, you're going to have to track the information. If you stay with this system and you just keep yourself a good organizational structure, right here, we got food, right? We can even break this down as in, like, we can create a folder here that and say, poisonous food, right? So we got any food that's going to cause you harm can go here. And then, you could break it down into liquids and, whatever else. So as long as you follow a good organizational structure, you don't have to go, someplace here and go, oh, where's what? We come in here and we got all this. And, you just come in here and you open up the side panel. You go, okay, I got my items, open up my items. I need my food and I need to balance my liquids. And then I come in here and I go, oh yeah, my milk needs a nerf or it needs a buff or whatever, or my poisonous. Oh yeah, those mushrooms you eat should cause, more damage than health or whatever. And then you find it. So just stay organized. If it's better, the more you have, the more important it is to stay organized. So in this case, folder structure is the best way. It's not going to be much different. You could, like I said, you can incorporate a data table in there to pull assets, but there's really no need for it. I think it's just extra work to do it that way if you're going to use this system and a data system. Now, where, just good folder organization. Really, let me put it in the chat. Let me find it here. There is, what is it called? It's, oh man, it just started downpouring around my house. Conventions. Hold on a second. I'm Googling something right here. So if you come in here, let me post this link into chat. If you go here, this is called naming conventions, but they go over more than just naming conventions. It's how Unreal recommends. It's how they do it internally. There's more than just the naming conventions in here. It gives you a good idea of how to organize structurally within there. But there's quite a bit in here. That's naming convention. That's not really one. That was naming conventions. Hold on a second. Coding conventions, coding standards. There we go. Coding standards. Pull this down. All right, here, this is the one that I was trying to get to here. This goes over a lot of different things. Here, I can pull this up here on stream. It just goes over a whole list of different examples, naming conventions, inclusive word choices, portable code, comments, how you should comment your code, C++ language, code formatting. So a lot of it has to do with C++, but a lot of it doesn't. Name spacing, physical dependencies, encapsulation, general style issues, right? So just fumble through it. And even if it's in C++, it'll still give you a decent idea of how you should organize your stuff. Now, if you're working in C++, it is even more important to have a good file structure, because while I can come in here now and go right click on my content folder or my all folder, I guess you can't do it all. Go in my content folder and go fix up redirectors. That's all fine and dandy, because when you move files around, the system doesn't quite know what it does. You move a file and it creates another file for a shortcut path, because your projects, your other blueprints and things like that, it thinks that that file is in a different location. So when you move it, it looks for that original location. Well, there has to be a redirector there telling that file or that blueprint or that code, no, we moved it over to this other folder. It's over here now. So go look over there. So it's called a redirector. And if you move it multiple times, then it gets redirected to a redirector to a redirector to the actual file, right? So you create this long list of redirectors, which are just little snippets of in a file that says, hey, look here, look here, look there. And in blueprints, you could do that. You could just right click on content, fix up redirectors, and it's going to get rid of those redirectors, as well as update your code internally to know, hey, look in this file path instead of the original file path. In C++, you kind of got that, but you don't. There's a lot more. You have to write a script. You have to write I think it's Python or something. You have to write some sort of script in order to fix redirectors. And it does that even when you rename your files as well. Whenever you rename a file, change a folder system, move files between folders, it creates a redirector. In C++, that's kind of, it's not a great thing. It's kind of crappy. And I hate to use even that minor of language on YouTube, but it's worse than that. But there is a script that you can write to go through and fix up your redirectors. So if you're coding in C++, be super mindful and vigilant of your data structure, your naming conventions, all that well in advance of actually writing it. So it's going to save you a headache down the road if you don't. So because there's no right click and fix up redirectors in C++. So follow good naming conventions, good coding standards, and you're going to be easy. Because no matter what, like I said, it doesn't matter if it's 1,000 row list of 20 columns for items versus just having 100 items and then with the variables inside those items. For me, like I said, visually, it makes a little bit more sense just to go to the object, because if I change this, since there's no actual code in here we wrote, if I get rid of this sword blueprint, then I go back and I reopen sword, weapon, sword, open it up. It doesn't open the full blueprint editor. I just get all the variables right here, that default variables that I can change. So I can come in here and change all this. So I don't get that whole look. I can if I want to. I can click open full blueprint, but without any functions in here, you don't get the full blueprint opened. You're just like, oh, okay, cool. I can come in here and change the values. And that's ultimately what you need, right? This is essentially what a data asset looks like when you go into it. You can write functions and stuff inside of data assets, but generally speaking, this is the view you're going to look, right? This is essentially the same thing. So these are super small. Objects are super small. What's great about them is there's no tick, right? That's why I chose objects. I talked about this in the object before, is there's no tick. So that's where there's no real performance hit. This is just without tick. There's just just storage space. That's all it is. And we're talking a couple bytes, if that. So, you know, and actually it's probably more than a couple bytes, because each value you're saving here is different size of bytes, right? So, but this mesh is already stored. So this is just a byte or two giving it reference to this particular shape. Same thing with this. So, you know, even if I have this berry used 100 times, it's not using a ton of bytes for that one image, or, you know, for all of those, because of the one image. It's just the one image. So, you know, these are usually only a couple bytes a piece. So you're not talking much. So anything else? Oh man, yeah, it's getting a little warm in here. All right, cool, Aaron. Yeah, and you've got me in chat too. You know, up in Discord. So, feel free to ask me some questions up there. I'll be more than happy to try to answer. I obviously can't get back to you all the time right away, but I definitely do what I can. And you usually ask me one-on-one, but there's other really knowledgeable people, Lost Burn, Soul Roll, Weird One. There's a lot of people that are super intelligent, and some so more than I, that are really good at this. So just feel free to start asking in some chats too, because if I can't answer, um, then, you know, somebody else will hopefully be able to help you out and provide you some different perspectives, right? Because that my perspective, the way I'm doing things here, isn't necessarily the only way or the best way to do it. I've never claimed that to be doing things the best way. So, you know, just keep that in mind, get different perspectives, talk to other people, and if anything, probably get answered a little bit quicker if anybody knows your answer, right? Because there's over 100 people on the channel. So, yeah, so that's it. Again, thanks a lot, Aaron, and everybody else who showed up. Thank you to Bishop for your donation. It is super, super appreciated. And to anybody else who may or may not donate, again, links are down in the description if you missed the live chat, if you're just watching the VOD. Otherwise, you don't have to. Come on over to the chat, to the Discord channel, say hi, leave me comments down below. This VOD should be there. You are one of the most thanks. I appreciate that, Aaron. I really do appreciate that. Yeah, I apologize to everybody for the lack in videos. I'm trying. I was hoping the Perforce was going to be a little bit more popular than that. I think it will once it catches on a little bit. When people realize that Perforce or using source control is huge, it'll get on there. But I'm not too worried about that. There's still one more Perforce I got to put out, but that's one thing I'm thinking about providing for a service for a benefit, is starting a Perforce server and just letting people come use it, and I'll manage it for you. You guys can just jump in and use it. But I wanted to get these Perforce videos out first before I think about doing that. So anyways, yeah, that's it. Again, thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Bishop, and everybody else, Monkey, who dropped in and said hi. And who else did we have here? I don't want to forget anybody. Dim popped in here. David Williams. And yeah, so thank you all for coming in. And Ben, yeah, can't forget Ben. Ben was in here. Yeah, hit me up, Ben, if you made it to this part of the VOD. Hit me up if you want some ideas and stuff. You're usually in chat though, Ben. So I know Weird One helps you out quite a bit. So that's really going to be the best way for help. Let's just organize some team things and go that way. So you could probably hear my voice is getting a little bit hoarse. So I'm out of here again. And I don't know if this is record, is pushing a record close to 4 hours. Yeah, I think you and I were doing the one-on-one thing for just over 4 hours, Aaron, the other week. But either way, yeah, thanks for your comments, for your kind words, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace. Hey, don't worry about it, Aaron. If you can, you can. Don't worry about it. You know, all of it's appreciated. I don't want anybody to feel like they have to. So, you know, but put it out there, you know, like I said, tip your waiters. Doesn't hurt. All right. Peace.